Italians have been voting for their next prime minister, and exit polls suggest Giorgia Meloni, head of the far-right Brothers of Italy party, could be the country's first ever female leader. Her right-wing coalition is projected to take the majority of seats in Italy's parliament. Meloni has sought to distance the Brothers of Italy from its post-fascist origins, but her victory would mean the country has elected its most right-wing government since World War II. Dr. Alberto Testa is an expert on the far right and explains what Meloni and her party stand for.
Fratelli d'Italia, or Brothers Italy Party, is a post-fascist party. But just only to clarify the far-right kind of meanings. When we speak about the far-right, we see this stream, which we see small groups following a white supremacist and Nazi ideology. Then we see radical right groups which play at the democratic system, so try to win elections. And Brothers of Italy is a part of this group. It has its roots on a party called the Italian Social Movement, which is formed by remaining Mussolini supporters after the Second World War. So we can classify as a post-fascist party.
The White House's national security advisor has warned of catastrophic consequences if Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin last week threatened to use any means to defend its territory as he announced partial mobilization in Russia. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told ABC's This Week that the US is taking this threat seriously. But Jake Sullivan also said the US is keeping its communications with Russia private to avoid engaging in a tit-for-tat rhetorical battle. Ukraine's president said he doesn't think Vladimir Putin is bluffing. Speaking to CBS, Volodymyr Zelensky said maybe yesterday it was a bluff, now it could be a reality. North Korea has launched a ballistic missile ahead of US Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to the Indo-Pacific, according to South Korean military officials. The launch also comes as the US and South Korea start 4 days of joint military exercises, which Pyongyang has in the past viewed as evidence of hostile intent. Washington and Seoul say they are defensive drills, but previous exercises have been both closely watched and criticised by China and Russia, who claim they increase regional tensions. The Biden administration is forging ahead with its efforts to try and deepen its regional alliances in a bid to counter the rise of China, build consensus on Russia over its war in Ukraine, as well as address technology security and supply chain challenges. In Tokyo, Kamala Harris will attend the funeral of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and hold a bilateral meeting with current Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. And later in the week, she'll head to Seoul for a bilateral with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, where they'll discuss concerns around North Korea. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. The Biden administration later this week is convening the first ever summit meeting of the United States and the Pacific Islands. It comes after China stole a march in a part of the world where the US has long historic ties. The wartime battles of Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands, for instance, are etched into American military history. But in April, China surprised Washington by signing a security pact with the Solomon Islands, and Washington has been playing catch-up ever since. Jim Lindsay is with the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations.
You reap what you sow. For about 30 years after 1990, the United States pretty much ignored the islands in the southern Pacific. And I think what you see right now is an administration scrambling while there's a sudden understanding that we're in a rivalry, a competition with China. The amount that we're putting on the table compared to what the Chinese are doing with things like the Belt and Road Initiative are quite paltry. But I think what you're really seeing is an effort by this administration to sort of abide by the first rule of diplomacy, which is show interest in others, and to try to make the case to show that we care. Again, a lot of diplomacy really is about showing up.
And he says ahead of this week's summit, the Biden administration has not been able to indicate any specific deliverables expected to arise from it. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main headlines again. Italians have been voting for their next prime minister, and exit polls suggest Giorgia Meloni, head of the far-right Brothers of Italy party, could be the country's first ever female leader. The White House's national security advisor warns of catastrophic consequences if Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. And North Korea has launched a ballistic missile ahead of US Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to the Indo-Pacific. And that is the latest from Feature Story News. I'm Jagruti Dave in Washington.
Officials for the Centers for Disease Contraction and Preservation held a press conference urging all Americans to suck on as many doorknobs as possible.
This flu season, the Center for Disease Contraction is recommending that all Americans, regardless of age or health condition, find a doorknob in a high-traffic area, wrap their mouths around it, and vigorously lick and suck it until they contract an illness. We recommend sucking doorknobs covered in a visible film of human hand grease. But the fact is, sucking on any doorknob can increase the likelihood of exposing yourself and your family to deadly pathogens by as much as 450%.
An instructional video released on the CDC's website showcases the proper method for sucking doorknobs while also providing tips for projecting all sneezes and coughs outward, sharing used Kleenexes and toilet paper with as many people as possible, eating 3 meals a day from local garbage cans, and dozens of other easy bacteria-spreading activities.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
And we're back. That's right. It's the Sunday night edition of Free Talk Live. We're a live radio call-in talk program where you can take control of the airwaves, dial in, talk about any subject you would like, or anything we're talking about, or anything we've talked about in the past, or things you think we should talk about that we haven't talked about yet. The telephone number, if you'd like to join us, 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Lord Reverend Dr. Captain Kickass. Joining me,
it's Nikki.
And Mark.
Captain's log, stardate 09252022. Mark, it's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's nice to be back here in New Hampshire. I got to do a really amazing thing today.
Oh, what was that?
I wed Ian and Bonnie, the two hosts here from the show.
Wait, like all three of you got married together?
Yeah, I know. It kind of looks like that in some of the wedding pictures, too. But in fact, this is my third wedding that I've performed. And so far, I'm 3 for 3 on them staying together.
So you were the official. You officiated the.
I officiated
the ceremony.
The ceremony. Yes,
the reverend, the captain, if you will,
the MC,
the MC.
Yep. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. That kind of thing. Yeah.
All right. Did you do the and you may kiss the bride thing?
I did. I told them just once. This is a family event, and then they proceeded to kiss several times.
You know,
they never listen.
These kids today, they get carried away with everything. That's awesome.
I'm really happy to have done it. I think they're a great couple, and I'm obviously I wouldn't have flown up here on my own dime to marry just anybody. So.
Ooh, wow, that is special.
Ian did buy me lunch.
Well, that totally makes up for it.
No, but there's a really great flight from Sarasota to Hartford that I took, and nonstop, and it was nice. And plus, I got to see some kind of rocket launch out the window of the plane. So no better place to see it than
out the window of the plane?
Right, 30,000
cool.
feet.
I thought it was a UFO.
I mean, if you didn't know what it was, then it was a UFO, but it was, in fact, a rocket launch. At least that's what the pilot told us.
It wasn't somebody like firing at you, was it?
Well, it didn't. It went the other direction. So maybe
we make marks on this plane.
maybe it was after it passed us. I don't. That's pretty cool.
Well, that sounds awesome, and congratulations, of course, to Ian and Bonnie.
You know, what I noticed today is that the old thing where you don't wish a woman congratulations from a wedding just is out the window. It just doesn't happen anymore.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I'm not aware that this is a thing, and I'm old, so.
Well, yeah. So the sort of
forgetful too. So
yeah, the etiquette gals out there will tell you that you're supposed to say congratulations to the man because he was lucky, right? He did well. He, the woman, on the other hand, best wishes is what you give her because, of course, she.
Good luck.
She could have had anybody. Right. Is the idea? You don't want to make it seem like she couldn't, and so that's how you do the wishes.
This sounds really sexist.
Well, it is. That's why you distinguish between the sexes when you say it.
So, what do you say to
a gay couple
or a trans couple that are marrying each other?
Would they?
Best congratulatory wishes?
You can do whatever you wish at that point, I think. Just be sure not to gender anybody.
I don't know if you heard, but I decided that my preferred pronoun is mofo.
Mofo, yes, you did. Yeah, it's a good one.
Now, on Beard Talk Live last night, I, of course, said the two words that mofo stands for, but I can only use mofo on Free Talk Live. So, but yeah. So
mine is Your Majesty, His Majesty.
Do you have preferred pronouns, Nikki?
No.
Okay. I'm still waiting for somebody. Like, when I first announced the mofo thing on air, we did have a couple callers who were like, referred, made a sentence out of it and used mofo to refer to me in the sentence in like the third person or whatever. So
it reminds me of Black Dynamite.
I love that. What is Black Dynamite? I like the sound of it already, though.
Oh, it's great. It's what is it? Blaxploitation? Is that what they're called? Yeah, it's a movie, but they also made a cartoon out of it, and it's just very
like Shaft.
Yeah,
very
kind
much,
of.
Yeah.
But it's more making fun of those kind of movies. But they did a great job with it. It's really hilarious.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Samuel L. Jackson, right? Because he's famous for using the word.
Yeah, he can use the word.
That mofo means.
Sweet Christmas.
And I don't know about anybody else, but Samuel L. Jackson did a whole series of those Capital One commercials.
Yeah.
And, like, Samuel L. Jackson's kind of a scary dude. Like, his voice is boisterous. He's kind of a big dude and a large black man kind of yelling at you, right? Like, what's in your wallet? Like, chill out, Samuel. Here, take the cash, man. Leave me alone, Like, I'm surprised they chose him for that particular series.
I think it's because everybody likes him. It's just like, I was, when I found out he was going to be Nick Fury
in the Marvel
movies, right. I was so excited because originally Nick Fury was Sergeant Fury in the Howling Commandos, which was, of course, an all-white crew. And then I guess it was early aughts, they rolled out the Ultimates, which was supposed to be a more real-life version of the Avengers.
Okay.
And I, of course, ate it up, and it was great, delightful. But what they did in it is they changed Nick Fury, because this is a whole different universe.
Right.
So they changed Nick Fury from a guy who has hair similar to mine, brown on top and gray on the sides. By the way, ripped and wearing a skin-tight leather suit with a underarm holster.
Sure.
To Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, it literally, all you have to do is look at the comic.
Right.
It's Samuel L. Jackson that they drew for it.
Right.
And this was before the movies, and then, of course, the Avenger movie come out. Samuel L. Jackson calls up Marvel, somebody there, I'm sure he has connections, and says, hey, mofos, it's Nick Fury calling. I want my part.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if he had to audition, frankly.
That was the audition.
Yeah. That was it.
He does great in that role, though.
They're like, if
He's
Samuel L.
awesome.
Jackson calls, just tell him he's got the part.
He just acted like Samuel L. Jackson. That's why they, because he was so perfect for it that the artist decided that that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And and Captain America said it in the first Avengers film. He's the spy's spy. I mean, and Samuel L. Jackson just feels that way all the way through.
Well, and I enjoyed Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury far more than I enjoyed Samuel L. Jackson as a Jedi Knight in the, I don't remember which Star Wars film it was.
It was several of them, and he had I like the purple blade.
Yeah. He just doesn't, he doesn't exude Jedi warrior to me. He exudes...
Really? I felt like he was really good in that role, too.
Really?
I think he's a good actor.
So.
Yeah,
I think he's a good actor.
I felt like they could have. The guy who played Qui-Gon, I felt like was a much better Jedi than Samuel L. Jackson in that. And I'm not trying to disparage the guy.
Right,
I think that I think he's a great actor.
Yeah.
And I think that it was just somebody's fantasy to have Samuel L. Jackson as a Jedi Knight.
Recently, I saw a series. I think it's a mini series, like 5-6 episodes. A story. I think Apple TV did it. It's called The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. It's spelled Ptolemy. Ptolemy Gray. Last Days of Ptolemy Gray.
Ptolemy.
And it's Samuel L. Jackson playing like an elderly dude, because Sammy's getting up there, right?
Yeah, he's got to be in his 70s.
But they made him to play even older. Like he's and he's got elderly problems, and he's got somebody that comes over and checks on him and this kind of a thing. And it's it literally is a story of a guy dying. But it Samuel L. Jackson just
so was Bucket List. He was in that too.
Yeah, but he just steals the whole show. I mean, I think they made it that way, but like he does such a great job. I was so impressed. And like, you know, it's not really a libertarian program, you know, kind of a thing. So there's,
well, it's on Apple TV.
It's on Apple TV, right? Yeah. So, but like, it was just, I was like, is Samuel Jackson really going to be able to pull this? And like, not only did he pull it off, it was fantastic. Like, I think it's one of the best things he's been in. So it's high praise coming from the captain for that particular program. Just evaluating his acting, not evaluating like the writing and the show and stuff like that. But I enjoyed the heck out of it. I thought it was great. 603-283-6160.
What are we going to talk about?
Telephone number. We have stuff.
Okay.
We have show prep. I mean, I think the three of us probably could just talk about anything at any time. So is it necessary? I don't know. But coming up, I would like to talk about this story where a cannibal pleads guilty to eating a Grindr date.
Oh, boy.
More Free Talk Live is on the way.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
Nice, very eloquent.
Thank you.
Delivered much differently than the normal Sunday crew. I like that you put a personalized style upon it.
I do recall having heard the Sunday style, but I didn't know that we had to have a particular type.
No. But it had a good beat, and I can dance to it. I give it a 9.
And we're back.
That's going to make a great sample for later in life. Pull the greatest hits of Mark Edge off of the archives of Free Talk Live.
Yeah, somebody did a sort of going away when I changed my name from Manwich to Mark Edge, and I've still got the audio someplace, and every once in a while it'll just show up on my computer, and there, and Manwich. Yeah, so there you go.
So did anybody ever try and call you something similar, like, hey, Sloppy Joe?
Sloppy Joe, Sloppy Joe, yeah.
I
have been called bold and spicy.
Oh, not by me, but
by co-hosts.
Like at the same time, or like individually? Like somebody called you bold and somebody else called you spicy?
No, the same guy called me bold and spicy, and then the other guy and then he also followed up later with thick and meaty.
Oh, wow. All right. Well.
Changes the whole feel of the conversation.
Yeah. The telephone number here in the studio, if you'd like to join us, is 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the captain.
It's Nikki.
And Mark.
Well, let's just talk about this thing, shall we? This article comes from RT, of all places. Cannibal pleads guilty to eating Grindr date.
I just keep thinking of like a meat grinder.
Grindr, as in the app. Is this an app for? It's a dating app?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the American admitted he killed and dismembered the victim 2 years after initially pleading insanity. So apparently, insane people aren't prohibited from joining these dating apps.
Well, I did hear before that eating human flesh does make you insane. Don't know if it's true, but I've heard this before.
Don't you kind of have to be insane to?
You would think so. It would be a prerequisite.
It's a chicken and the egg situation.
Speaking of the chicken and the egg situation, there's a meme rolling around the internet that says, if you really think about it, egg salad is chicken salad.
I guess it is.
It's unfertilized chicken embryos, so I'm not sure you could make that qualification.
But, I mean, it's funny. Right?
It's funny.
Now,
I like the idea that coffee is soup.
Oh, it is kind of. It's broth anyway.
Yeah. It's bean broth.
Bisque.
Yeah.
Put some cream in there and it's a bisque.
That's right. That's even funnier. Yep.
Interesting. What are you doing? I'm just having my morning bisque. I actually made chicken egg salad.
With both?
So yeah, I had some hard-boiled eggs, and I had some shredded chicken, and I had some mayo and mustard and some celery salt. And
somehow you managed to violate the rules of the Talmud in ways that I haven't heard before.
What are the rules?
So the reason that observing Jews don't eat cheeseburgers, not burgers, not cheese, cheeseburgers,
okay,
is because you don't boil the kid in the mother's milk, which is some verse out of the Talmud, right? Not Holy Scripture, some kind of commentary on Holy Scripture that is often revered. But of course, the likelihood that the cheese that you're getting, the milk whence your cheese is made, is from the same cow or the mother of the cow that you're having your burger is very slim.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I mean, that's the reason they observe it. But your chicken salad has that same feel to it.
I was going to say, back in the day when people had smaller farms, I guess that would make more sense. But in the world of factory farming, I don't really see that being super likely.
It does seem very cruel to boil the kid.
Yeah, when you think about it that way, it's like, oh, well, that is kind of messed up.
Who wants boiled meat?
Yeah, and I will admit that when I made this particular meal, that meme crossed my mind, right? And then like the whole, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? That crossed my mind as I'm making this meal. And then I threw some cheese in it. Not to violate any Talmud or anything, but just because I had some cheese as well. But like, I like chicken salad, and I like egg salad. And I thought,
I like mayonnaise, because that's a prerequisite there.
And I just happen to have both of these ingredients on hand, and like, got to use them up, right? Don't want them to go bad and spoil or whatever, right? So like, yeah, and it was delicious. I actually topped it with some of these crumbled cheese.
Oh.
They're crunchy cheese though. They're like you buy like a little bag of it,
like cheese curds
fried,
or something.
It's like fried cheese. They're like
sounds like a thing a guy from Wisconsin would get.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Well, and also I'm trying to do the keto thing, so like no carbs, right? So I can't put like croutons on it or crumble up some tortillas to give it the crunch or whatever, right?
No potato chips.
Yeah, and I couldn't make a sandwich out of it because no bread and that kind of a thing. So anyway. Michigan native, back to the story, Michigan native Mark David Latunsky has confessed to stabbing Kevin Bacon.
Oh, man. All comes full circle.
So 1 degree.
Yeah, we don't need 7. We just need 1. A college student and hairdresser half his age, whom he met on gay dating app Grindr before removing and eating his testicles.
Oh.
I haven't pre-read this, so this is all news to me. So
there's nothing wrong with us on radio. I mean, and plus, I don't think anybody cares anymore. The FCC even cares what happens on radio anymore.
Well, right, but let's not tell our listeners that.
Well, the last time anything happened was basically around the time that Janet Jackson's boob was shown to the world, and then it was the Bush administration. Really, there's not been any sanctions of stations since then. I'm not going to get on my show and start, cussing like a sailor. Yeah. And by the way, I can probably cuss as well as any sailor.
We could have a cuss off.
Not now, though.
You, in fact, having been a sailor at one point.
I did do some commercial fishing. It's true.
The ex-convict versus the sailor and the cuss-off.
The captain versus the sandwich.
Right. Well, best I can tell, Captain, no sandwich has a chance around you.
Well, I do like a good sandwich. It's true. Anyway, so this guy, Mark David Latunsky, confessed to stabbing Kevin Bacon, apparently removed and ate his testicles. He pled guilty in court on Thursday to charges of open murder and mutilation of a body 2 years after his lawyers initially sought an insanity plea. A hearing next month will determine whether Latunsky is convicted of first or second-degree murder, both contained in the charge of open murder or manslaughter. While the 52-year-old could face life in prison, Latunsky's attorneys seemed more concerned about the implications of their client's change of plea than he did. Lawyer Mary Chartier, who had initially suggested the insanity defense, told the court that, while this is not an outcome that fellow defense attorney Mr. Krause and I think is in Mr. Latunsky's best interest, we do have to follow Mr. Latunsky's wishes. Consistently, he's been very clear more than once, multiple times, on his choice and his reasoning.
I think it's interesting, if you're declaring yourself insane, can you then declare yourself uninsane? Because it seems like once you've done it, this is crossing the Rubicon. You can't go back.
That's a good question. And also declaring yourself, is that like a legitimate thing? Like you're the guy who diagnoses yourself?
Right. What do I know?
603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live is next.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Italians have been voting for their next Prime Minister, and exit polls suggest Giorgia Meloni, head of the far-right Brothers of Italy party, could be the country's first ever female leader. Her right-wing coalition is projected to take the majority of seats in Italy's parliament. Meloni has sought to distance the Brothers of Italy from its post-fascist origins, but her victory would mean the country has elected its most right-wing government since World War II. Dr. Alberto Testa is an expert on the far right and explains what Meloni and her party stand for.
Fratelli d'Italia, or Brothers Italy Party, is a post-fascist party. But just really to clarify the far-right kind of meanings. When we speak about the far-right, we see the extreme, which we see small groups following a white supremacist and Nazi ideology. Then we see radical right groups which play at the democratic system, so try to win elections. And Brothers of Italy is a part of this group. It has its roots on a party called the Italian Social Movement, which formed by remaining Mussolini supporters after the Second World War. So we can classify as a post-fascist party.
The White House's national security advisor has warned of catastrophic consequences if Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin last week threatened to use any means to defend its territory as he announced partial mobilization in Russia. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told ABC's This Week that the US is taking this threat seriously. But Jake Sullivan also said the US is keeping its communications with Russia private to avoid engaging in a tit-for-tat rhetorical battle. Ukraine's president said he doesn't think Vladimir Putin is bluffing. Speaking to CBS, Volodymyr Zelensky said maybe yesterday it was a bluff, now it could be a reality. North Korea has launched a ballistic missile ahead of US Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to the Indo-Pacific, according to South Korean military officials. The launch also comes as the US and South Korea start 4 days of joint military exercises, which Pyongyang has in the past viewed as evidence of hostile intent. Washington and Seoul say they are defensive drills, but previous exercises have been both closely watched and criticised by China and Russia, who claim they increase regional tensions. The Biden administration is forging ahead with its efforts to try and deepen its regional alliances in a bid to counter the rise of China, build consensus on Russia over its war in Ukraine, as well as address technology security and supply chain challenges. In Tokyo, Kamala Harris will attend the funeral of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and hold a bilateral meeting with current Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. And later in the week, she'll head to Seoul for a bilateral with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, where they'll discuss concerns around North Korea. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
We are back, aren't we? We went somewhere, and now we're back. That's how things go.
We kind of stayed in the same place.
I was about to say, I didn't go anywhere.
Well,
just sat here.
All right. I guess you guys have got me there. It is Free Talk Live. The telephone number 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the captain.
It's Nikki.
And Mark.
And Mark, you have something to tell everybody.
I do, and something I truly believe, that Bitcoin.com is the best source for learning about cryptocurrency. You can go there now and click on Get Started at the top of the page, and once you do that, you'll find all sorts of valuable information, neatly organized to suit your needs. There's no longer an excuse for ignoring this important, world-changing information. If you're a knowledgeable crypto user, you can go check out news.bitcoin.com to get the latest headlines for all of the news that's relevant to you. Bitcoin.com is your source for everything crypto, like getting a wallet app, mining, trading, and all the latest cryptocurrency news. All on a slick and easy-to-use website. It's bitcoin.com.
All right, so we've been talking about this weird-ass story from RT, of all places. Apparently, a guy named Latunsky murdered a guy named Kevin Bacon.
Both great names, by the way.
Yeah. And then ate him. Like, and I mean that in like the consumed variety, like had him for dinner, not in the had a good time variety.
Kevin Bacon did not have a good time.
I wonder if so at first he apparently he went to plead insanity and then changed his plea. And I'm just wondering now if, because the guy's name was Bacon, if he was like,
He's just confused.
I wonder if it tastes good. Because bacon is flavorful. It
was an honest mistake.
I don't know what happened. I reached into the freezer to
somehow I missed the part that he ate the man named Bacon. Yeah.
The South Park guys in I think season 2. They released a DVD of season 2, and in between each episode, they do a little skit.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the skits they did was making bacon with Macon.
Yeah,
and it's their ripoff of a cooking show. So Macon is their pet pig, right? And then the two, Matt and Trey, the creators of South Park, are like doing the cooking show thing. They're the cooks in the kitchen, and what they're making is bacon lasagna. And it's like a layer of bacon, and then some cheese, and then some more bacon, and then some lasagna noodles, and then some more bacon, and then some cheese.
Sounds like it's going to be pretty oily.
And then, yeah. And so then they bake it at 450 for, I don't know, a half hour or something. And they go to the next episode. They come back from the next episode, and they're like, okay, the bacon lasagna is done. And they take it out of the oven. And, it's all very cooking show-esque, right? They use all the same angles and the zoom in on the dish, and as they cut into it and serve it on a plate or whatever. The point is that they end up serving it to the pig.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So they made Macon eat bacon.
Made?
Well,
I bet Macon went right for the bacon.
They offered it to him, and Macon, definitely accepted their offer. So, yeah.
Well, I raised pigs at one point.
That's right.
And had one...
Did you name any of them Kevin?
We did not. I named them after politicians.
That's great.
That's awesome. It makes the killing easier. So we did.
It sounds like something Guar would do.
The first batch was the senators, right? So I had John McCain and Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer.
That's fantastic.
I can't remember all of them. There were 5 total.
Yeah.
But it turned out that John McCain was actually a Kelly Ayotte. We didn't gender the pigs right. And so that's when we really got into it, because we kept Kelly. We were unwilling to kill a female pig at the farm. But it was really fun, I got to say, when you'd put the slop out and you'd call, and then you'd say, "Senators!" and they'd just squeal, right? This is the most exciting part of their day. Like, they're wetting themselves. They're so exciting. And they'd come galloping, as much as overfed pigs can gallop, to come to the trough. And one time, I got, we'd get sliced meats from the deli, but I would never serve pork to the pigs.
Okay.
And I accidentally, somehow, some salami got in with the turkey that was in there, and dropped it down to Abigail Adams. I went from senators to presidents and first ladies after this, and it was a homeschooling experiment. This way Jack could learn his well, I gotta say, Bill Clinton was my breeding boar, and there was a time when he really was a good choice for the name, right?
So
it was his job to eat and hump. I mean, who better?
So was this a homeschooling experiment on raising pigs or politics?
It was sort of all that. You got to wrap these things in, right? Yeah. So anyway, Abigail Adams was fast on the draw. One time I saw her grab a living rat, and dispatch it herself and then consume it. And yeah, she got a taste for meat, and that salami was gone before I ever could put my hand out. You just don't put your hand in a trough with a pig. I mean, these animals were all hand raised.
For that matter.
You don't. They'll take it right off. You pull back a nub.
This is one of the most accurate politician analogies I have ever heard.
Yep.
Because as soon as there's like some money or something around, all the politicians they run right for it. Don't put your hand in there.
I mean, it makes you wonder how a bunch of senators would react if you had a bucket full of milk and jelly donuts mixed together.
Wow.
That's what we serve. They got organic vegetables from the local ashram and whatever gas station donuts were left over that you people didn't eat.
That they were delicious.
They loved them. Everybody. That's how the life was on the farm. Everybody gets a donut every day, and it's a great life, and then one bad moment.
All right. So returning back to the story of Latunsky and Bacon, Latunsky and Bacon were matched on Grindr and met at Latunsky's house for a date. The cannibal claimed Bacon told him he was suicidal, to which he responded he could help the younger man disappear and suggested using a knife. When Bacon supposedly said do it, Latunsky stabbed him in the back of the neck and then slit his throat.
Jeez.
Supposedly to ensure he didn't suffer, before hanging him upside down and removing his testicles with the knife. Latunsky said he normally eats Rocky Mountain oysters and said instead of eating the ones in his freezer, he decided to use the testicles of Kevin Bacon. Michigan State Police Detective Sergeant James Moore testified. This is in Michigan, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Bacon's body was discovered in the basement of Latunsky's home in Bennington Township just days after the pair's fateful Christmas Eve rendezvous. I didn't know that this took place on Christmas Eve.
So the one thing we will never know is whether the conversation with Kevin Bacon is accurate or not. Right? And that's the big problem, is you want to have this. I mean, if you're going, this is the difference between murder and manslaughter at the very least. Now, from a libertarian standpoint, a person should be able to help another person in their life. It's not your life if you can't end it. Right? It belongs to somebody else, because ownership is about control, and therefore, that's the whole idea. Now, as to whether or not I support it, God, this is awful. But whatever the case may be, there was an interesting case probably a decade before this out of Germany where the guy did it. These two guys, did basically the same thing, but the guy was alive while the guy was doing it and kept consenting on video.
Oh, that is weird.
Ooh. So there you definitely do not have murder, right?
We did a similar story about it was in the South somewhere. A guy,
the guys
did
that
castration.
The castration, yeah. Now that guy was alive, but he was castrated, and
but
some
he
similar stuff happened.
Consented to it.
Yes.
So anyway, we have a caller that we'll get to who has a story of similar insanity coming up. This is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160.
Fact. The new NSA data center in Utah requires 1.7 million gallons of water every single day to operate. Billions of Fourth Amendment violations need massive computers and the water to cool them. That water is being supplied by the state of Utah. Fact. There's absolutely nothing in the Constitution which requires your state to help the feds violate your rights. Our message to Utah: turn it off. No water equals no NSA data center. Visit offnow.org.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
And we're back in action, live on your radio and or internet stream. Unless, of course, you're listening to us later on our podcast or one of our archives or our Odyssey channel. Anyway, this is Free Talk Live. The telephone number here in the studio is 603-283-6160. The phones are open if it's between 7 and 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Generally speaking, you can call, talk about whatever's on your mind. There's only a couple of times a year when we aren't here live doing this. If you're listening to the show outside of those hours, please call between 7 and 10 p.m. Eastern, 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the captain.
It's Nikki.
And Mark.
We've been talking about Kevin Bacon. Well, no, not that Kevin Bacon. Another guy named Kevin Bacon who was apparently murdered by some guy named Lutunsky. They met on Grindr, and it's just weird. So they met on Grindr, and then Lutunsky ate the guy he met on Grindr, whose name was Bacon.
Bacon, yeah.
That's just that's too coincidental for me.
Yep, Bacon put himself through the Grindr, and
thank you for summing it up.
Lutunsky
enjoyed his dinner.
Had some pork. So what I think is interesting about this is this Latunsky character, first, 2 years ago, pleads insanity.
Right.
And I think I already believe that. Right, the guy's consuming some other dude's testicles on from Grindr, whatever. Sounds crazy. I'm in.
Well, I mean, he already likes Rocky Mountain oysters.
Yep.
I mean, you got him fresh right there. You might as well. It'd be a waste.
I tried some for the first time. I guess it was like 3 weeks ago, maybe like that. I was in Honduras and we went to a restaurant, and huevos de toro. And that, bull's testicles.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, if they said it was a specialty of the house, I can't miss this.
Okay.
And it reminded me a lot of beef tongue.
Okay.
Honestly, nothing particularly.
I've tried beef tongue. I mean, it was okay, but I was just like, I'm never going to crave
I had
this.
pork heart. I've had a variety of these things. And, again, I wouldn't choose it. It's not my favorite thing, but yeah, I've had it now, and yay. Now
Cross it off the list.
Cross it off the list, yeah.
Well, just to sort of...
But I guess what I was talking about, with the the insanity plea is then he retracts the insanity plea. Well, insane people are known for a few things, but a lot of things, but a few things very specifically. Like, you can't trust what they say.
Right.
So how can we in court, which is legal insanity is a completely different thing than actual insanity. How can we in court allow a person who is potentially insane to determine what their plea is going to be?
Right. My first question is, did the court agree that he is insane? Right.
Well, I don't think they did. I think that they were litigating that, and the attorneys were basically saying, hey, he's definitely insane, and we're definitely going to treat him like he's insane. Yeah. Now, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is really important. Insanity doesn't mean you get off.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
Like, this came back from the time when insanity would keep you out of the electric chair.
Right.
And that's fine, but not many states have an electric chair anymore.
Right.
Versus how many do versus how many don't. And that means that, basically life in prison, or it could be, death through and lethal injection, a variety of things. But they don't execute somebody who's legally insane.
Right.
But the difference between spending life in prison and spending life medicated in an insane asylum is vanishingly small.
Yeah.
There's not an advantage to this, from what I could tell. And
it might be more insane to spend the rest of your life in an asylum than in a prison.
You may never recover from the drugs, the Thorazine, and all that stuff they give you in the insane asylum, whereas in prison you have the hope of getting out and a variety of things. I don't know if this... I sincerely hope at 50... What did they say, 4? Yeah. This guy probably shouldn't get out. But I'm not prepared to say 52. That with everybody. I think that, but I think that prison should be reserved for people who are a danger to society.
Yeah.
That's it.
This guy sounds like he might be.
He could be. Now, if he's got some kind of indisputable proof that this gentleman of his, friend of his that asked to be killed, then I'm not willing to call it murder. But I am willing to say that if he doesn't have indisputable proof, then that insanity plea has just stepped up for me because you didn't even get proof.
Right.
Well, and, it sounds like he doesn't really know this guy that well.
Yeah, he just met him on Grindr, right?
Grindr that night. So even if it's your best friend, I don't know. For me, if someone's like, hey, I'm really depressed, like, can you kill me? I wouldn't do it. Probably not, especially if it's not someone I know. If it's a close family member or a friend and I know they've been suffering, still probably not then, but I can understand it more.
Yeah.
But if it's just some random guy you met on Grindr, you're prepared to go to prison to help this random stranger. You know nothing about him. Do you know that he's really depressed or maybe he's just having a bad night?
And then butcher him up and eat him.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's where it really takes it to the next level.
And when it comes to suicide, I just can't accept it generally. So to me, suicide is something you should think about a great deal.
Oh, absolutely.
For a long time. And if you're going to ask me, I'm never going to sanction it because there's people who love you.
Right.
And whoever you are, somebody loves you.
Right.
And to, take your life, your own life away from them, I feel is just too much.
Yeah.
Now, I get it. I'm not saying that there's not stories that I've read, been like, okay, well, that might be the one, but I'm not going to sanction it. You're not going to get sanction from me. And, so this whole idea that a person can decide to kill themselves in a short period of time, I think is really misguided. Especially consider how many suicides in at least this country are about that alcohol's involved.
Yep.
Alcohol is a big depressant, and suicide seems like a much better idea when you're good and drunk than other ideas. And then, you sober up. You may have a whopper of a headache, but you sober up.
Well, and all these drugs that people are taking now, too, where the side effect is may have suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, like all the psych drugs.
Really? That's a... What? Why are you taking this in the first place if that's one of the side effects? I don't get this.
Well, then drugs on the street, a lot of people nowadays are on heroin, fentanyl, crack cocaine, all these sort of things. And when
does that make somebody suicidal?
It could, just because it brings your life down to a point where you might be homeless, you're dependent on this drug. If you don't get it, you're really, really sick with withdrawals, and that can make people feel hopeless to the point, and then they feel like a burden to their families. It just snowballs until the point where they're like, I wish I was dead. But then they get clean, they go to detox, they go to treatment, and then they don't feel, like they see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
So people can have these suicidal and depressed feelings, but they can go away. Like they can change their minds, and things can get better for them. So
I don't know. I read it at one point, and I couldn't tell you what the number is off the top of my head, but it was a large percentage of people who have had suicidal ideation at some point in their life. And the evidence is that it just goes away after a little while.
Yeah.
And so, that's one of those things. One of the things I hate the most about gun ownership is that your gun is significantly more likely to be used by you on you.
Well, and there is those statistics where typically men that are having suicidal thoughts, they have more success with their suicide attempts because they're going to use something more lethal, like a gun. Whereas women are more afraid typically, and these are just statistics. This isn't like cut and dry, but women are typically going to try to OD on medication and do things that are less lethal.
A little more passive, whereas men are problem solvers. They're like, I know how to take care of this. I've got the right tool for the job.
Well, that's what the tool's for. Pistols for bears and people. Cougars.
So just to wrap up,
those kind of people.
Just to wrap up this story, cougars. What? Police have. When you get to be my age, there's no more cougars. They're all just chicks now. Doesn't matter, if they're over 35 or whatever.
I was just at the nursing home, and you would be a popular commodity there. A friend of mine, 97. God bless him.
Police have been looking into the possibility that the suspect Latunsky was involved in other crimes. Oh, go figure, right? Could he have possibly been involved in other crimes? While they spoke with two other men he picked up on Grindr who allegedly fled his home in late 2019, no charges have been filed yet. One man even returned to Latunsky's home later that night. So he ran away, but then was like, wait a minute, so I'm going to go back.
Who knows?
603-283-6160. Coming up, we have a caller that claims to have an equally insane story. We'll segue into that. This is Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next. 603-283-6160.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Italians have been voting for their next prime minister, and exit polls suggest Giorgia Meloni, head of the far-right Brothers of Italy party, could be the country's first ever female leader. Her right-wing coalition is projected to take the majority of seats in Italy's parliament. Meloni has sought to distance the Brothers of Italy from its post-fascist origins, but her victory would mean the country has elected its most right-wing government since World War II. Dr. Alberto Testa is an expert on the far right and explains what Meloni and her party stand for.
Fratelli d'Italia, or Brothers Italy Party, is a post-fascist party. But just to clarify the far-right kind of meanings. When we speak about the far-right, we see the extreme, which we see small groups following a white supremacist and Nazi ideology. Then we see radical right groups which play at the democratic system, so try to win elections. And Brothers of Italy is a part of this group. It has its roots on a party called the Italian Social Movement, which formed by remaining Mussolini supporters after the Second World War. So we can classify as a post-fascist party.
The White House's national security advisor has warned of catastrophic consequences if Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin last week threatened to use any means to defend its territory as he announced partial mobilization in Russia. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told ABC's This Week that the US is taking this threat seriously. But Jake Sullivan also said the US is keeping its communications with Russia private to avoid engaging in a tit-for-tat rhetorical battle. Ukraine's president said he doesn't think Vladimir Putin is bluffing. Speaking to CBS, Volodymyr Zelensky said maybe yesterday it was a bluff, now it could be a reality. North Korea has launched a ballistic missile ahead of US Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to the Indo-Pacific, according to South Korean military officials. The launch also comes as the US and South Korea start 4 days of joint military exercises, which Pyongyang has in the past viewed as evidence of hostile intent. Washington and Seoul say they are defensive drills, but previous exercises have been both closely watched and criticised by China and Russia, who claim they increase regional tensions. The Biden administration is forging ahead with its efforts to try and deepen its regional alliances in a bid to counter the rise of China, build consensus on Russia over its war in Ukraine, as well as address technology security and supply chain challenges. In Tokyo, Kamala Harris will attend the funeral of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and hold a bilateral meeting with current Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. And later in the week, she'll head to Seoul for a bilateral with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, where they'll discuss concerns around North Korea. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. The Biden administration later this week is convening the first ever summit meeting of the United States and the Pacific Islands. It comes after China stole a march in a part of the world where the US has long historic ties. The wartime battles of Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands, for instance, are etched into American military history. But in April, China surprised Washington by signing a security pact with the Solomon Islands, and Washington has been playing catch-up ever since. Jim Lindsay is with the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations.
You reap what you sow. For about 30 years after 1990, the United States pretty much ignored the islands in the southern Pacific. And I think what you see right now is an administration scrambling while there's a sudden understanding that we're in a rivalry, a competition with China. The amount that we're putting on the table compared to what the Chinese are doing with things like the Belt and Road Initiative are quite paltry. But I think what you're really seeing is an effort by this administration to sort of abide by the first rule of diplomacy, which is show interest in others, and to try to make the case to show that we care. Again, a lot of diplomacy really is about showing up.
And he says ahead of this week's summit, the Biden administration has not been able to indicate any specific deliverables expected to arise from it. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main headlines again. Italians have been voting for their next prime minister, and exit polls suggest Giorgia Meloni, head of the far-right Brothers of Italy party, could be the country's first ever female leader. The White House's national security advisor warns of catastrophic consequences if Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. And North Korea has launched a ballistic missile ahead of US Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to the Indo-Pacific. And that is the latest from Feature Story News. I'm Jagruti Dave in Washington.
This is the Onion Week in Review. In local news, a succession of terrible events failed to befall a 33-year-old riding a longboard to his digital media job Monday. Shocked bystanders helplessly watched as media developer Jake Reston skated safely through Manhattan traffic without flipping over on his obnoxiously oversized skateboard and smashing his stupid face into the pavement, with many saying they were horrified at the sight of the floppy-haired little shit walking into his office unscathed.
It was one of the most horrible things I've ever seen. He wasn't even hit by a car. I was just praying that someone would step in and throw him off his stupid little skateboard and punch him right in the mouth.
In other news, a study finds owning a cool leather jacket is more rewarding than raising a child. A community garden sprouts the first condom wrapper of spring, and a little turtle gorges on an entire raspberry.
Tonight in the cabin, schoolmarm's telling about how they talk about corpulation down the school. Only a fool needs telling how to screw. Just let the pecker guide you. But come on, listen anyhow.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
And we're back. The telephone number, 603-283-6160. You can tattoo that on the forehead of your firstborn or grab a crayon, write it on the fridge.
That sounds like aggression.
You know, you could, if you have to, relieve the bladder, you could spell it out in the snow if it's wintertime where you live.
This is not wintertime anywhere.
It's wintertime somewhere on planet Earth.
I guess it's
right
the very...
There's some snow somewhere on planet Earth.
I'm not saying there's certainly going to be snow, but it's
in
either
the mountains,
the very early spring or very early fall or very late spring, I would think.
Either way, all I'm saying is that, if you're in a snowy area listening to this show and you can't remember the number, why you can just empty your bladder into the snow and write 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
It's Nikki.
And Mark.
We've been talking about this story in the first hour, we talked about this story from RT where a cannibal pleads guilty to eating a Grindr date. It was pretty heinous, and we revealed all the details in the first hour. But we had a caller. Let's bring him on the line now. It's Major Payne in Michigan. Major, you say that you have a story equally as insane to this one. Is that right?
Pretty damn close, Buck. Pretty damn close.
All right, go ahead.
And, if you want to hold me over, I'll tell you about the cannibalistic tribe of North America.
Let's just go with this first one.
2 days while they ate you. But anyway, so this guy, he commits a particularly heinous murder, and I can't give you a location other than did not catch it. It was something I caught on the radio, and I wasn't paying attention until it got interesting. You know what I mean? So anyway, he stabbed this dude like 50 times.
Okay.
And I'm thinking I'd be wore out after poking a dude 25, but that's just me. So he goes into court and he goes on an insanity plea, and he says that he committed this murder for fear of public safety, as he thought the guy was a werewolf.
Sounds like an insanity plea in the making.
Wait. Did this happen in London?
I don't know. I like my werewolves with onions. But
I think the song is Werewolves of London, not Werewolves and Onions.
Werewolves with onions.
I made that line up a long time ago. Werewolves with onions.
I like it.
No, he's a parody artist also.
Great.
But anyway,
like we need 2 of those on this call.
It gets even better. So he spends 2 years in a nut house, right?
All right.
And he gets out, and he's not even on probation or parole or nothing.
Okay.
Well, he signs onto this dating website, and in his profile, he describes himself as an adventurer who's been touring and traveling for the last 2 years. And the judge gets wind of this. And, of course, all hell breaks loose, right? Now he's back on probation, and the only thing he can use the internet for is job search and whatnot. But I thought it was pretty damn funny.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for the call, Major. We appreciate it. Werewolves. How do they work?
Lycanthropy has long been part of sort of the human mythos, right?
Yeah.
If you think, one of Marvel's most popular characters, Hulk, is
He's basically a werewolf.
He's
right?
an ogre lycanthrope, and werewolves are the most popular form of lycanthropy. But you can think of lots of situations where a person transforms into, the stories, I should say, stories where people transform into some other beast or thing, and it's an interesting idea. What if? And in the case of werewolves, obviously they're bloodthirsty with the moon and these sorts of things, and it makes the story interesting, because a story that's just all good stuff, it just doesn't work.
Right,
that's why the Hulk is such a compelling character, because he just can't control his anger.
Right, he hulks out when he gets mad. Mr. McGee, don't make me angry.
And now that the Hulk in the Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, is able to control himself, not nearly as compelling of a character.
No.
Right, yeah. I've often wondered too if the werewolf and the Bigfoot were sort of the same mythos. Right, because they're sort of similar in description, right?
Right.
If you read a description of the Bigfoot as far as the physical features, and then you read a description of the traditional werewolf, they're kind of the same thing.
And there are some theories that Bigfoot are shapeshifters or multi-dimensional creatures.
And then there's, of course, the Dogman, which is essentially somewhere between Sasquatch and a werewolf.
I've never heard of that.
It's the exact same tale as Sasquatch, except it's more like central Midwest. So Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, that area. The Dogman, that's where the Dogman myth is sort of geographically located. But it's the same thing. It's the same as Sasquatch. It's kind of the same as the werewolf. What's the Mexican one? They have a name for
Chupacabra.
Chupacabra. Yeah, it's like almost the exact same story as that.
So the Yeti stories are based on an actual primate that lived, probably 10,000 years ago or something like that. I don't have anything right in front of me, but National Geographic wants to give me some information so that I can.
You have a laptop right in front of you.
I'm trying to look it up, but I don't. I can't tell you what this creature is called immediately. But I've done the research in the past. There was a mountain monkey, right? An ape. Yeah. It didn't have a tail. So monkeys have tails. And this creature existed some period of time ago, and it makes perfectly good sense that we'd come up with stories about it. Plus, it wasn't even 150 years ago that you would see wild men in the woods regularly.
Right.
In the United States, there were many nomadic tribes of Indians, and you might see one hunting or something like that, might be covered in skins. The Iroquois would wear skins.
Yeah.
And so the Yeti stories make a lot of sense. And stories, fables get passed down. People hear them. Now, I love the Bigfoot mythos, and I would love there to be a native North American primate.
Yep.
I don't know that I believe the stories. I'd need to see more evidence, but I really like the idea.
Yeah.
And I'm open to it. You can bring me some evidence. I like the idea. But to me, it's just these sort of long-handed down ideas. And let's not forget that there were different hominids at one time too. Imagine what it was like. You've got these Neanderthals meeting the Homo sapiens,
right? Yeah,
and what they must have said about each other.
What's the other word I like? Zinjanthropus.
I'm not sure.
That's one of the ancient cavemen.
Is it?
One of the types? Yeah, I just remember that word because I like to say Zinjanthropus.
It is a good one.
It just sounds cool.
Yeah.
The thing with Bigfoot for me is, I spend a lot of time with Matt. He's obviously very, very into Bigfoot mythology. So he listens to a lot of podcasts and YouTube channels where people call in or write in and share their own stories.
Right.
And I mean, there are hundreds, if not thousands of these stories where people are like, I was in the military, or, I worked at, a lot of them are by like nuclear power plants and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And these people will come out and share their story, and they're like, I was embarrassed for years because I'm this well-renowned person. I'm not trying to lose my job. But there's a lot of different stories, and they all have, very similar details. So it just makes you wonder, like, I don't know, are these things out there? We spend a lot less time outside and in the woods than we previously did. So I don't know what's out there, but I know a lot of people who claim that they've seen things like this.
Here from Wikipedia, they didn't charge me like National Geographic wanted to. Some speculate that these reported creatures could be present-day specimens of the extinct giant ape, Gigantopithecus. However, the Yeti is generally described as bipedal, and most scientists believe the Gigantopithecus could have been quadrupedal, so a mass of that, unless evolved specifically as a bipedal ape, like hominids. Walking upright would have been even more difficult for the now extinct primate than it is for extant quadrupedal relative, the orangutan.
Well, and then there's the mistaken bit, right? People can mistake things for things from time to time.
Sure.
And there still exist in the United States today what we refer to as mountain men, right?
Yeah.
Like people who just, they're done with society and they just go up into the mountains and live.
They found a guy in Maine and put him in jail for stealing Cheetos.
Right.
Terrible.
603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live is coming up. Are you Bigfoot? Give us a call. Let us know.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, Mark at freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people like passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
He says with authority. But the only legitimate kind of authority, and that's one who has expertise in an area.
That's right.
And in this case, Mark has expertise in the area of being a voice on a radio program.
Throughout much of human history, most of human history, and of course that's human etymology too, right? Like our words are created from previous noises we made to describe things and that kind of thing. So leaders led from the front.
Right.
Kings were the first into battle. Nobles were taught to fight their whole lives. And that's why they would kill so many guys in the battlefield, because, these were farmers that they're killing.
Right.
And so when we would use terms like leader and authority and, these sorts of things, we would mean somebody who got their position through, blood, sweat, and tears.
Right. They earned it.
Yeah, actually earned it.
Well, and there's this thing in the corporate world too, where they have managers, right? And oftentimes they will incorrectly seek people with leadership qualities to become managers. And I find myself when I'm involved in these corporate worlds from time to time, find myself reminding them that managers are not leaders, or not necessarily leaders. And leaders don't always make great managers. There's a distinct difference in those two things. Like, a guy could be a great leader and a really terrible manager.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And vice versa. A guy could be a really good manager, but a terrible leader.
Right. Managers are making sure people get their work done and things like that, whereas leaders are making the work, making people want to do the work, whatever it might be.
Or competing with everybody else and like showing them how it's done and how it can be done the best.
And I'd just like to posit to the audience here that the world would be a better place right now if our heads of state would be willing to fight other heads of state.
I advocate for that.
Duel style.
Don't
don't bring all of us into it. I didn't do anything. You don't bring the military into it. Just have a good old.
If Putin wanted those two provinces of Ukraine, why didn't he challenge Zelensky to long sword or short swords and bucklers?
And if Biden wants to support either team, why isn't he over there himself wielding a gun or a hatchet or a whatever?
Or at the very least, a blade-laden wheelchair.
Right.
Yes. There's a Black Sabbath song about this called War Pigs.
War Pigs, yes.
Yeah, on their knees.
One of the very best anti-war ballads out there.
Well, let's continue with your calls and thoughts because the phones are packed right now. If you're trying to get in and you're getting a busy signal, please keep trying. It's 603-283-6160. We've got David in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, and I believe that song was actually about Walpurgis, but they changed it to War Pigs for a couple different reasons. But and first of all, a big thank you to Jack in Washington for the abuse. Your people are very good at that type of abuse. Thank you very much.
Your people?
Who's Jack in Washington, and what kind of abuse did you get from him?
He'll be Jack in Washington will be calling in, I'm sure, and he can tell you who his people are, as he has previous occasions on your air. So my point is tonight, the point that I'm trying to make that has been interfered with, so I'm going to make it again. And this judge that you're all familiar with, Judge John J. Romero Jr., before he became a lawyer, he had a conversation with his father where his father said that lawyers are crooked. And then Judge John J. Romero Jr., before he became a lawyer, referred to them as scummy guys. And so I want to ask Judge John J. Romero Jr. in New Mexico, if your father, who you hold in high esteem, said that attorneys are crooked and you refer to them as scummy guys, why did you become one, Judge John J. Romero?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't know if he's listening to this broadcast.
In many cases, judges are nothing but unsuccessful lawyers. People that couldn't make it out there offering their lawyering services in the marketplace and just decided, hey, you know what? I'll just go ahead and arbitrate between the lawyers.
I'll take the cushy government job.
Yeah, the magic robe.
Right. Responding to Nikki, I happen to know for a fact that New Mexico is probably more unique in this respect than any other of your radio markets. You're heard in 3 different stations, 3 different locations in New Mexico. And the nature of New Mexico, the homogeneous population that it is, I can guarantee you that if there's anything that any listener finds juicy in any respect toward any other person in the state of New Mexico, they will hear about it.
How so? I just don't quite understand. So please explain.
You are heard in Farmington, New Mexico, which is a fairly decent-sized city, and there are politicos in Farmington. Hello, guys, and you're being heard right now in Albuquerque on the biggest talk station, but the second biggest in a 1 million-person market. And today's Sunday, so I don't believe that you're being heard down in Las Cruces, which is another Politico location, but you are heard on Saturday nights there. And there are plenty of people that hear you, and they are connected to the people that literally right up to the legislature, the judiciary, the governor, and all of the deep state type people. The listeners know all of these people because they're their cousins, and they will tell them, and they will hear about it. That's how it works in New Mexico. Ain't that right, New Mexico?
Well, New Mexico, call in and let us know.
Hey, thanks for the call, David. We appreciate you. Let's move on to Jerome calling from Charleston, South Carolina. Jerome, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I got another question about New Mexico. New Mexico's been big in the news here. There was a comment that came out from a politician in New Mexico. His name's Coy Griffin, and his comment was that the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat. Now, I watched Fox today, and I noticed they never brought that story up. Never. Now, if that was a Democrat that had said something like that, excuse me, it'd be all over the news, wouldn't it? Don't you think?
Well, especially,
Jerome, you're so
I'm sure
stuck in the Democrat-Republican paradigm.
Well,
he kind of is correct here, though. If that was said the other way around, it would be all over Fox News. Oh, look what the Democrats are saying. But it goes the same way where, you know.
How much time did MSNBC spend on the guy that went crazy and, what was it Minnesota, and ran over the kid at 3 o'clock in the morning because he was
thought they were, because it was Republican. Yeah, I saw that. They had that story on today. Fox had that story.
I bet they did. This is what slanted news looks like, Jerome. And it's you just pick how you want your slant.
Yep.
Are you calling Fox fair and balanced slanted? How dare you?
I think that it's pretty clear that that's what they do.
It's pretty clear that when they say they're fair and balanced, they only mean from their perspective.
I got one for you, Jerome, because I was thinking about this.
Let me give you mine first.
Okay.
Trump saying that he's calling this document flare up with the FBI. He calling it a witch hunt, and he's saying that he can declassify.
All right, hey, Jerome, hang on. We'll keep you over. Stand by. I want to hear what Jerome has to say, and then you have something for him. So we'll get to that. 603-283-6160. We've got more callers on hold as well. If you're trying to get through and it's busy, please keep trying. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live is coming up.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Italians have been voting for their next Prime Minister, and exit polls suggest Giorgia Meloni, head of the far-right Brothers of Italy party, could be the country's first ever female leader. Her right-wing coalition is projected to take the majority of seats in Italy's parliament. Meloni has sought to distance the Brothers of Italy from its post-fascist origins, but her victory would mean the country has elected its most right-wing government since World War II. Dr. Alberto Testa is an expert on the far right and explains what Meloni and her party stand for.
Fratelli d'Italia, or Brothers Italy Party, is a post-fascist party. But just really to clarify the far-right kind of meanings. When we speak about the far-right, we see the extreme, which we see small groups following a white supremacist and Nazi ideology. Then we see radical right groups which play at the democratic system, so try to win elections. And Brothers of Italy is a part of this group. It has its roots on a party called the Italian Social Movement, which formed by remaining Mussolini supporters after the Second World War. So we can classify as a post-fascist party.
The White House's national security advisor has warned of catastrophic consequences if Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin last week threatened to use any means to defend its territory as he announced partial mobilization in Russia. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told ABC's This Week that the US is taking this threat seriously. But Jake Sullivan also said the US is keeping its communications with Russia private to avoid engaging in a tit-for-tat rhetorical battle. Ukraine's president said he doesn't think Vladimir Putin is bluffing. Speaking to CBS, Volodymyr Zelensky said maybe yesterday it was a bluff, now it could be a reality. North Korea has launched a ballistic missile ahead of US Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to the Indo-Pacific, according to South Korean military officials. The launch also comes as the US and South Korea start 4 days of joint military exercises, which Pyongyang has in the past viewed as evidence of hostile intent. Washington and Seoul say they are defensive drills, but previous exercises have been both closely watched and criticised by China and Russia, who claim they increase regional tensions. The Biden administration is forging ahead with its efforts to try and deepen its regional alliances in a bid to counter the rise of China, build consensus on Russia over its war in Ukraine, as well as address technology security and supply chain challenges. In Tokyo, Kamala Harris will attend the funeral of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and hold a bilateral meeting with current Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. And later in the week, she'll head to Seoul for a bilateral with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, where they'll discuss concerns around North Korea. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
And who are we? We are the hosts.
We are?
Yes.
Hosting you here on Free Talk Live.
That's very good. Thank you, Mark. Branding. That's what we do here.
Right.
No, we're actually a call-in live talk radio program where you can bring
We
up
like to
anything you
brand the
want.
host, but they squeal.
No, those are the politicians. Did you ever name one Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
Well, she hasn't been a president. No, it's only the pigs that I had were only named. I had 5 pigs that were named after senators, and they got the big names. I had a Rand Paul and McConnell, Schumer, McCain, and then some Democrat whose name is escaping me.
Very nice.
But the McCain ended up being a Kelly Ayotte, just so people know. And then the rest were presidents and first ladies.
So it is Free Talk Live. I am your host, the Reverend Captain Kickass. Joining me tonight,
It's Nikki.
And Mark.
Do you really want liberty in your lifetime?
Yes.
Yes, me too. Later this year, this guy, Mark, is speaking at Free Cities Foundation's annual conference, Liberty in Our Lifetime. It's being held in the beautiful city of Prague, October 21st through the 23rd, and it showcases autonomous cities and intentional communities that are springing up around the world, offering opportunities for settlers to live freer lives. The conference theme is Parallel Structures for Progress, and will explore physical developments and parallel structures emerging in education and finance that offer alternatives for people looking for better ways to learn, educate their children, and invest in their future. Free Private Cities is offering all Free Talk Live listeners a special 20% discount on tickets, which can be claimed when checking out on Eventbrite using the promo code FTL20. To find out more about the conference, visit lifetimeliberty.com and follow the conference on Twitter. Their handle is @LibertyIOL. Make sure you get your tickets soon and take advantage of that early bird discount. If you'd like to buy your ticket in Bitcoin, simply drop them a Twitter direct message for instructions. Again, lifetimeliberty.com. Use the code FTL20 for your 20% discount, and it's in Prague, October 21st through 23rd. Go say hi to Mark Edge.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about doing this. And
are you doing a speech?
Yep, going to do a speech, basically pitching the Coral Beach Village. Is the idea. We're still in the startup phases.
Sure.
I can't really sell anybody a condo or anything yet.
Right.
But that's the hope. Is we found a little slice of paradise that's a lot freer than other places, and we intend to take advantage of some special economic zone legislation in Honduras to make it even freer.
Let's move on to your calls and thoughts. First, we have. Let me make sure I do this right. I believe we have calling from the wilderness. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello.
You must have went back to the wilderness.
Sasquatch, is this you?
You expect a Sasquatch to use a telephone?
Well, I mean...
That's silly.
I screened him, and I said, where were you calling from? He said, the wilderness. And I was like, what did you want to talk about? He says, are you kidding? Bigfoot. Apparently he's gone. All right, moving right along, let's go to Gigi calling from Charleston. Gigi, you're on Free Talk Live.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, hey.
Usually I call about current events or constitutional issues. However, this evening marks the beginning of the Jewish New Year. Many of you on this wonderful program that I adore, especially Nikki and the captain,
Aw, thanks,
who
Gigi.
I've admitted I have a secret crush on. Many of you are open and honest about being agnostic. I would like to extend to all the wonderful hosts that teach me things, that contribute to my intellectual stimulation, and I want to also extend this to the listeners out there, because I value other people's opinions who call in. I might not like them, I might not agree with them, but the fact that people can call in comfortably and be tolerated and treated with courtesy on this program means a lot to me. I want to wish everybody good health from my Jewish New Year, and that's why I'm calling.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gigi.
That's great, Gigi.
Absolutely.
Was there anything else you want to talk
about? Wonderful work.
Thank you for the call, Gigi. We appreciate you. Gigi's a regular.
She's great.
Yeah, I enjoy her. Although she keeps she calls in and she says, my secret crush, the captain. And I'm like, you realize you're just blabbing it all over the radio, right?
It's not a secret anymore.
Point, yeah. She's pretty great.
Where do people get to see pictures of you, just out of curiosity?
Video.freetalklive.com.
Well, yeah, you can go to cam.freetalklive.com. And
CaptainKickass.com.
By the way, Nikki, stunning, if anybody is interested. Beautiful woman. But, yeah, I mean, any other places?
CaptainKickass.com.
CaptainKickass.com. Okay.
I finally got the URL, Mark. Like, for years, I've had ReverendCaptainKickass.com. I had LCaptainKickass.com. I had, I don't know, 3 or 4 different variations, but I finally, CaptainKickass.com was available. I had to go through and like pay money for it, right? But it's never been even available to purchase until this year, and it cost me $600. But I did it.
So it's official.
I bit the
you
bullet.
are officially the captain.
So if you go to CaptainKickass.com, it actually redirects to ReverendCaptainKickass.com because that's where I had the site before. There's if you scroll down, there's some pictures of me at the bottom, but it's an old school looking website. It's just got some links to other stuff that I've done. Some of my old metal bands, all of my parody work is up there. There's a link to my Bandcamp sites for that kind of stuff. There's a link to Free Talk Live up there as well. So CaptainKickass.com.
Very good.
So let's move on to another story, shall we? Because we talked about this cannibal who ate Kevin Bacon. Not even kidding. But we have this other story here from the Daily Mail. And the headline reads, it's a pretty long headline.
They do that at the Mail.
Yeah. I really get them going. Mormon mom who was shunned by the church after being outed as an OnlyFans star claims she is now an online mistress to religious husbands who pay to have virtual sex with her.
There are some spicy pictures on that article of her.
So the bullet points here. Holly Jane, 39, from California, has claimed married Mormon and Catholic fans are paying her for virtual sex on OnlyFans, saying she is their online mistress. The mother of 4.
I don't know what virtual sex is, but I know what a cam girl is.
Right. I'm
it sounds
assuming
like
that's what it is.
Rebranding.
Yeah, that's my assumption as well. The mother of 4 makes $45,000 per month.
Can't knock the hustle.
Posting on the subscription site. Maybe I should get a OnlyFans. That's good coin. She recently revealed that a fellow churchgoer snitched on her antics to their local bishop, and she was forced to choose between the church and her career.
Well, the church ain't paying you almost $50,000 a month, so.
Yeah, I think she's going to live in sin for a while longer.
I want to know about the elder that had to do this investigation. Right?
Yeah, right.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to look up this site and see this naked woman, whoever she is, because there was definitely going to be a naked woman at the end of the investigation.
Yeah.
It just was it Holly James or not?
Right.
Also, who is the fellow churchgoer that just
snitched.
Stumbled upon her? Oh, you just stumbled upon her OnlyFans? Sure.
I caught my son browsing some porno, and oh, lo and behold, it was Molly Jane, or Holly Jane, sorry, anyway. Holly said she was shunned by the Mormon Church after refusing to give up her OnlyFans account, where she has virtual sex at least 3 times a day. So she's a real go-getter.
Yeah, I can't do the calculations right now, but whatever 45,000 is divided by 21 is what she's making apparently per session.
She's a continuing source of inspiration.
Was it monthly? No, that was monthly.
$45,000 a month.
Yeah, so I guess that's 9, but divided by 90 then.
603-283-6160. More about Holly Jane coming up.
When commercials come on, don't push the button. Instead, listen. Even if you don't sell things for a living, you're still selling in the various conversations and transactions that make up your busy day. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important, especially if you're a job seeker. So take a lesson from Madison Avenue. Often the fewer words, the more effective the message. Like Jiffy Lube, where you never need an appointment. Or the Office Max ad that says, you supply the ambition, we supply everything else. How about online ticket broker StubHub.com, the way in when it's sold out? Or CyberCupid Match.com's seductive, go ahead, it's okay to look. How cleverly and succinctly can you distill your message? For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
Most people think you have to seek out a God for finding meaning in life, but really meaning comes from your awareness that your next move will have a consequence to you, whether good or bad.
The meaning is created by the person having the experience.
It's inside
experiencer.
Your awareness that your next move will have a consequence for your positive or negative view of the world. That's where all meaning comes from.
And I fully believe that it's your interpretation of your experiences, how you decide to act as a result of the circumstances that surround you, that will ultimately decide your fate here. As far as, will you have a pleasant experience or will it be a hellacious one? I believe that
in heaven and hell, but I believe that they exist every moment. Like you get to choose heaven and hell, and the people that do bad things experience hell because doing bad things results in bad stuff.
But you can always choose otherwise. You can begin at any moment to start over again.
Sinners can be redeemed.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
And we're back. Yeah, that's right. That's the most original comeback from the break intro that any of us has done tonight. I challenge you to do better.
All right, challenge accepted. Okay.
Better. This is Free Talk Live, if you're wondering what the heck you're listening to. We're a live radio call-in talk program where you can take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever's on your mind. The telephone number 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Lord Reverend Dr. Captain Kickass Buckshot Esquire, if you will. Joining me.
It's Nikki.
And Mark.
Is that new to you, Mark?
What, the Buckshot Esquire? I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, he adds, just keeps adding to it.
I actually stole the Buckshot Esquire, if you will, from a former drummer of mine whose stage name was Eugenius the Human Pump Handle Slamming Machine Buckshot Esquire, if you will.
I love it.
Great.
So I just was like, I'll take that suffix because I'm making fun of titles. So at any rate, we've been talking about this article from the dailymail.co.uk, of all places, about this lady, Holly Jane, age 39, from California, who apparently is Mormon, or claims to be Mormon, or was Mormon. I'm not sure how Mormonism works, but
Mormons get naked too, and
assumably
some of the Mormons look good naked, and thus some people will pay to see some naked Mormons.
Good for her.
Yeah. Right.
So she started an OnlyFans account and apparently does...
I believe Nikki's been asked to start an OnlyFans account on multiple occasions and has turned down the office.
From chat members on this show.
Where is the chat?
I'm not watching it today.
But where is it? What's the...
Chat.freetalklive.com.
Chat.freetalklive.com.
So this girl, Holly, did start an OnlyFans account. Apparently she makes $45,000 a month.
Maybe I should start one.
We'll see how your job goes first, but
right.
At least you got backup, right?
Yeah.
$45K a month is compelling.
I love a good side hustle,
That's a front hustle, a side hustle, a back hustle.
Yeah, they're going to want to see all your hustles if you're going to OnlyFans and making $45,000 a month.
Bottom hustle. It's all those hustles. She recently revealed that a fellow churchgoer snitched on her, and she was forced to choose between the church and her career. So guess which one she chose, I wonder.
Smart girl.
So I guess my question would be, what do you think about this, Captain? You decided to bring this in here. I mean, it seems like the obvious thing is here's a pretty lady making $45,000 a month.
Look,
who's doing something that's incongruous with the church, and there's certainly a level of what do you call it? Just a sort of hypocrisy in the church. Well, we had to go find your page.
He's over there watching the videos.
Right.
I'm watching her jiggle right now. That's what I'm doing. So,
and technically, I'm the one that brought it in.
Yeah.
It's because I'm pretty jealous. Not going to lie.
What are you jealous about? That she's making the kind of money?
Yeah. And she's hot, too.
For 39,
she's an attractive woman, yeah.
Very attractive, yeah. She also does have that
you have age on her, though. I got to say. That gives you a big advantage.
Yeah,
she's got youth. And it's valuable.
This girl does have what I like to call psychotic eyes.
She does have crazy eyes. Yeah.
Now I got to look. You know what? The jiggling didn't interest me at all, but I got to see the psychotic eyes.
Go ahead and pop over here. I'll keep talking about her. You can see the psychotic eyes right here.
Psychotic eyes plus schoolgirl outfit.
Right. I mean, she's milfy, right? She's not,
she's an attractive woman who looks crazy.
She's shapely. And a little further down, Mark, there's like a little gif of the video, and she jiggles in the right places. You know what I'm saying?
I get that she's not, that she's making money for a reason. We should talk about what OnlyFans is. OnlyFans is basically a site where anyone can go and make their own pornography and, get fans.
Well,
and those fans
pay. It doesn't have to be pornography. Like, you can do whatever on the OnlyFans.
But almost nobody does.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be too long where you're drawing pictures on OnlyFans where somebody says, hey, I'll give you $500 to take your shirt off.
This reminds me of that South Park episode where Butters is like, hey, you want to start making some real money? And he starts pimping out all the little girls. Want to start making some real money?
Wow, Cartman, your mom really is on the cover of Crack Whore magazine.
God.
Anyway, Holly said she was shunned by the church. She says she has 20 dedicated regulars, as well as thousands of other followers, some of whom ask her to dress in her Sunday church clothes.
God bless.
The horror.
Mm-hmm.
Or horror. Wait.
Horror. There's two syllables in it.
Holly explained that married men sign up for her account because their partners aren't putting out anymore, saying, in a way, they're cheating, but virtually.
Is it cheating, though?
I don't think it is. In my opinion, cheating is a thing, and to define other things as a thing is duplicitous.
I think you and whoever you're with, if you agree to be monogamous, whatever that agreement is.
Right, you can cheat on that relationship, but yeah.
You all need to decide what cheating is or isn't for yourselves. Some people have different definitions. I had a girlfriend once who said, if you even think of being with another woman, you're cheating.
Dear God.
But that's kind of like impossible, right? You can control what your brain does.
Like the time when I was, 12, and I was riding my bike and I saw a bikini-clad girl, jiggling in all the right places, and I was staring at her and I ran right into a stoplight.
How many senseless acts of violence have been committed while people are just watching attractive women walk across
I've
the street?
seen car accidents happen.
Oh,
because of
yes,
that,
it
right?
happens. Honey, you got to think about this before you wear that.
Could kill people.
You can get people to have died.
Apparently, she's a mother of 4, shunned by her church after they discovered her OnlyFans account, cashing in on a Mormon mistress on the site, claiming married Mormon fans are paying.
I wonder what her husband, she might not be married still, but she has children. I wonder.
Her husband is saying cha-ching. I mean,
he's taking half of her money and he's over at the titty club.
I know people who will take pictures of their significant others to put it on OnlyFans.
Yeah, I have heard
but I want half, whatever.
Yeah, I've heard I've heard the same sorts of stories, and all I can say is that, your jealousy drops after a few years. You're not trying to, whatever. I've seen it. Other people can look too.
Yeah, do you want that new house or not?
Right, $45,000 a month. It's not many months before you've paid for the house.
Yeah.
She has,
and I imagine that when I'm looking at these, by the way, you like one attractive woman doing a dance on Instagram, and the whole thing is no longer puppies, right? It's just all chicks in bikinis.
Yep, the algorithm changes quick.
Right. But I mean, I see some of these attractive women, and I'm like, your husband's taking these pictures.
Yeah. Definitely, for sure.
So about OnlyFans, it seems like so many people during the pandemic, so many women during the pandemic just sort of dropped out of their, online job or their job and created this, and now they're just making money being beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little shaving involved and some camera angles, but largely that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, you got to have some costuming thrown in there, some lighting, stuff like that.
Right. Good lighting is so important.
Apparently, she has 61,300 followers on Instagram. And she claims that the restrictions don't stand in the way, restrictions meaning the Mormon restrictions, which are restrictions on alcohol, tobacco, vulgar language, and sex outside of marriage. But she says they don't stand in the way of her lucrative OnlyFans career, which makes...
She hasn't had sex with anybody outside of her marriage. They keep calling it virtual. I'm not sure who's calling it virtual sex, but this is just being naked.
Yeah, she made headlines after revealing a fellow churchgoer snitched on her. It looks like this is all just redundant. She says, "I'm knackered. I'm having virtual sex with these men."
She's not American if she says she's knackered.
At least 3 times a day, Holly told NudePR.com. She believes she's popular with religious men, particularly Mormons, because they are naive about sex before they get married.
I think they also can relate. I mean, I get it. I mean, people want to... They want to connect with people, and they know that if you're from their peer group, that you'll understand them better.
She says, "I think with people in the Mormon church, they marry young and follow the rules," she explained. "Sex isn't really spoken about, and men often have an uncomfortable relationship with it. They have this idea of what having a wife is like, and when their sex lives aren't what they expected, they come to me. That's why I'm getting so many married religious men secretly signing up to my account."
One of our online producers here is claiming that the husband is in fact dead. She's a widow.
Oh.
Huh.
So I don't know, but it could be true. People die.
We do have some pretty good producers around here. They tell us some good stuff from
fans.
Time to time.
I think anybody can be a producer as long as you communicate with me during the show.
We use the term loosely, of course.
Yes.
We just throw it around whenever somebody tells us. So they're like, one of our producers has...
Yes, that's what it means.
She also says they have this idea of what having a wife will be like. There are also non-religious people who view being a Mormon as a kink or a fetish, and I'm their own online mistress, she added.
Ooh.
So,
at $45,000 a month.
Yeah. I think some of those husbands are going to be disappointed when they get married and their wives don't live up to this lady.
Gold and silver. You can own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals shipped fully insured direct to your home. Free Talk Live can get you their Silver Starter Kit at employee pricing. Just go to bullionmax.com/FTL. It includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products. This offer's limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to bullionmax.com/FTL. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Italians have been voting for their next Prime Minister, and exit polls suggest Giorgia Meloni, head of the far-right Brothers of Italy party, could be the country's first ever female leader. Her right-wing coalition is projected to take the majority of seats in Italy's parliament. Meloni has sought to distance the Brothers of Italy from its post-fascist origins, but her victory would mean the country has elected its most right-wing government since World War II. Dr. Alberto Testa is an expert on the far right and explains what Meloni and her party stand for.
Fratelli d'Italia, or Brothers Italy Party, is a post-fascist party. But just really to clarify the far-right kind of meanings. When we speak about the far-right, we see this stream, which we see small groups following a white supremacist and Nazi ideology. Then we see radical right groups which play at the democratic system, so try to win elections. And Brothers of Italy is a part of this group. It has its roots on a party called the Italian Social Movement, which is formed by remaining Mussolini supporters after the Second World War. So we can classify as a post-fascist party.
The White House's national security advisor has warned of catastrophic consequences if Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin last week threatened to use any means to defend its territory as he announced partial mobilization in Russia. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told ABC's This Week that the US is taking this threat seriously. But Jake Sullivan also said the US is keeping its communications with Russia private to avoid engaging in a tit-for-tat rhetorical battle. Ukraine's president said he doesn't think Vladimir Putin is bluffing. Speaking to CBS, Volodymyr Zelensky said maybe yesterday it was a bluff, now it could be a reality. North Korea has launched a ballistic missile ahead of US Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to the Indo-Pacific, according to South Korean military officials. The launch also comes as the US and South Korea start 4 days of joint military exercises, which Pyongyang has in the past viewed as evidence of hostile intent. Washington and Seoul say they are defensive drills, but previous exercises have been both closely watched and criticised by China and Russia, who claim they increase regional tensions. The Biden administration is forging ahead with its efforts to try and deepen its regional alliances in a bid to counter the rise of China, build consensus on Russia over its war in Ukraine, as well as address technology security and supply chain challenges. In Tokyo, Kamala Harris will attend the funeral of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and hold a bilateral meeting with current Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. And later in the week, she'll head to Seoul for a bilateral with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, where they'll discuss concerns around North Korea. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. The Biden administration later this week is convening the first ever summit meeting of the United States and the Pacific Islands. It comes after China stole a march in a part of the world where the U.S. has long historic ties. The wartime battles of Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands, for instance, are etched into American military history. But in April, China surprised Washington by signing a security pact with the Solomon Islands, and Washington has been playing catch-up ever since. Jim Lindsay is with the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations.
You reap what you sow. For about 30 years after 1990, the United States pretty much ignored the islands in the southern Pacific. And I think what you see right now is an administration scrambling while there's a sudden understanding that we're in a rivalry, a competition with China. The amount that we're putting on the table compared to what the Chinese are doing with things like the Belt and Road Initiative are quite paltry. But I think what you're really seeing is an effort by this administration to sort of abide by the first rule of diplomacy, which is show interest in others, and to try to make the case to show that we care. Again, a lot of diplomacy really is about showing up.
And he says ahead of this week's summit, the Biden administration has not been able to indicate any specific deliverables expected to arise from it. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main headlines again. Italians have been voting for their next prime minister, and exit polls suggest Giorgia Meloni, head of the far-right Brothers of Italy party, could be the country's first ever female leader. The White House's national security advisor warns of catastrophic consequences if Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. And North Korea has launched a ballistic missile ahead of US Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to the Indo-Pacific. And that is the latest from Feature Story News. I'm Jagruti Dave in Washington.
It's being called the must-have tech gadget of the year. The Samsung Apex, which hits shelves today, streams video into your left eye, internet into your right eye, and sucks your dick all at the same time. Samsung spokesman Neil Werner is projecting the biggest sales in his company's history.
Are you kidding me? This thing does everything, plus it sucks your dick, all right? And I know what you're thinking. And yes, ladies, there is a version for you that eats you out. Hanging up Apple, we beat you to the punch on this one. Samsung's got you by the balls.
In spite of the almost $1,000 price tag, customers are raving about the device.
For my career, I do need the internet and TV, and my dick sucked all the time.
I already have a TV and a girlfriend and a laptop, but to have all those in one device would be really nice.
Even a run of bad press about unsafe working conditions in the Apex factory in India have not dampened sales projections.
Yeah. Factory, switch up, blah, blah. How about you just plug your eyeball straight into the internet and get your dick sucked?
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
And we're back. It is the Sunday night edition of Free Talk Live. I'd like to dedicate this hour to Richie Rich. Richie Rich is convinced, Mark, that you don't want to do a show with him.
I would love to do a show with Richie Rich, but I
told Richie Rich, look, man, you're not an attractive blonde woman.
Right. Oh, I feel so special.
With a great radio voice.
You're the attractive blonde woman. Sorry. Misunderstood.
I thought Mark was the attractive blonde.
Well, this is embarrassing.
Well, I'll tell you what, as much gray as I have, I'll be mistaken for a blonde here shortly.
Yeah, I keep waiting for my beard to go completely white. I don't know that it's ever going to happen. Yeah. It's a little disappointing, really.
And you and I are basically the same age,
I'm
right?
50.
I'm 51.
You got like a year on me or something. Right. So, yeah.
And how old are you?
25.
She's like half our age. That's true. Anyway, you're listening to Free Talk Live. That's the name of the program. The telephone number, if you'd like to join us, is 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the captain.
It's Nikki.
And Mark.
Let's do something weird and go to an unscreened caller.
Ooh.
You're on Free Talk Live.
This is Creighton from Kentucky. How are you doing?
Hey, Creighton.
Long time no talk.
Yeah. We're good. What's on your mind?
Well, I specifically wanted to hear from my spirit host about his recent globetrotting and successes and failures in his efforts.
I assume you're talking about Mark Edge, and I assume you're talking about his, what do I call it when you go?
Gallivanting.
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Well, I recently came back from hitting my 50th state. I went on a cruise with my mother and my son, and we had a great time. Got to see Alaska, which is well seen from a cruise ship because, those glaciers are amazing. By the way, they're disappearing, and you need to go see them. So it was nice to get 50 states in, and now by the way, I bought Jack a little display of all 50 state flags. He's really into flags. And so he's put his in, and he's at 40 something. I don't know what his number is, but he was excited to play with the flags. And then on the cruise ship itself, they had a visual trivia, flags of the world, and I'm like, oh boy, they had no idea the ringer that I'm going to bring to this one. And I brought Jack, and there were 20 questions, and then a bonus question. He got all of them right.
Wow.
And so did this other kid who was called like a hyper savant or something, his mother's referred to him as. But I mean, I should say kid. He was a young man, probably in his early 30s. And,
sure.
So the two of them both got tote bags. Indeed.
Well.
Yeah, it was a fun time. And prior to that, I've been basically in Honduras. I've chosen that as the place where I'm going to try to build a freedom community. The reason is, although they have undermined the ZEDE legislation, it is down but not out and may come back in some form or another. It is home to two interesting ZEDEs, and the third one I don't know that much about. And those are called Prospera at prospera.hn. That's the website, prospera.hn.
It's not Prospera?
Well, you can say it how you want, but that's how they say it.
Okay.
And then there's Morazan.city, Morazan.city. And both of these are, under the ZEDE legislation, which is somewhat tenuous at this time. They also have other special economic zone legislation, which I find to be kind of equally as interesting. And so I've done the show from Utila. And Utila is split by a lagoon. And the one side of it is really not occupied by that many people. Just these, houses that are off grid and occupied largely by North Americans. So I'm trying to set up a freedom community there and set up, some special economic zone legislation that goes in to make it even more attractive. But right now, I mean, you're basically free when you're there.
Yeah.
I mean, what defines freedom for you is really the big question. What do you have to be able to do to be free? Because the notion of the Free State Project, where everybody's going to be free, it isn't going to work. You can't service all the different types of people. And so, I say find figure out the 5 things that are most important to you, whether it's happiness or freedoms or whatever it is that you need to have, and then go in the place in the world where those things are so.
Right.
And Ian seems to think that you have to be wealthy to travel, and by God, you don't. You can drive right across the border and begin living a freer life in Mexico in many ways.
As evidenced by, that television show, the documentary series HBO did called The Anarchists. So we did a screening of that here at the Bitcoin Embassy of the full series. And, sure enough, the two, that are the sort of the main characters of the show, that's how they got to Mexico. They got in a car and drove.
Well, I tend to agree with you, Mark, when you say that it's, different people have different things that they need to be happy and feel free. And I don't think New Hampshire has that for every single person in the world.
Yeah.
And, I think it would be naive to think that everyone would be happy in New Hampshire.
I've been of the opinion that I enjoy New Hampshire far more.
I love New Hampshire, yeah.
Far more than I enjoyed Washington State, for example, with the lack of laws that they have here by way of comparison, the freedom that I have here by way of comparison to that place. So in my opinion, I've upgraded my, quote, freedom, unquote, by moving here. Now, I am also an ardent supporter of people around the world desiring freedom. There's a market for freedom. And as evidenced even just within the United States by friendly competition online, because there's freedom-oriented people who are moving to Texas, freedom-oriented people who are moving to Florida, freedom-oriented people who are moving to New Hampshire, right? Each for their own different reasons because, like you say, Like one place cannot fulfill the desire for freedom for everybody in every way. So
I'm really curious what one gets out of Texas that they don't get out of Florida.
That's a good question.
Curious.
Probably
I mean,
better barbecue.
I'm trying to be. Yeah, if you think that your barbecue should be rubbed rather than sauced.
And some people believe still that Texas is the only state in the union that has it written into their constitution that they can secede from the union at any time.
Well, they haven't though.
I agree.
And they're not even close
I'm not
to
saying
it.
you don't have good argument. I'm just saying that people have, like...
I'm not interested in what could happen in a state, and this is the thing about New Hampshire and
you're
Texas.
missing my point.
No, I just want to say this, is that I'm interested in the freedom that I can get in a place now and today. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to design my whole web presence around is I got really lucky. I got a bunch of money, and I manage a bunch of money for a couple of organizations.
Yep.
And I'm doing pretty well, and I can live the life I want to live. And the life I want to live is to actually find the freest place.
For you.
Yeah, well, in different ways, and look at it, and just sort of parse it out for people so that they can answer this question for themselves. Because I don't think it's all in one place.
I agree.
On that point, Mark, I would like to ask, what was the failure of the Marianas Islands?
Marianas Islands. The failure, if you want to call it such a thing, I will still claim that the Marianas Islands are the freest place in the United States, and I don't mind calling them that. It's just that they're highly remote, meaning that you got to spend about 36 hours, especially post-COVID, traveling there.
Honduras isn't remote.
No,
I can
leave there. I can leave here, Boston Airport, in the morning, and be in my house in Honduras in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's much closer.
So, you don't have that same situation. And so it's the remoteness, and yeah, it's really that. There's just not much you're going to, you can't travel in and out. So if somebody wants to live in a place and stay in that place, I would say that, and freedom is important to you, I'd say that the Marianas has it. It's a libertarian paradise. It's got the crown jewels of what libertarians have all been talking about. It's got
Honduras or Marianas?
Marianas.
Okay.
It's got ignored prostitution. It has gambling. It has legal weed. It has just pretty much everything that somebody's claiming that they want to see in a place, and it's right in the United States. But it also has the FBI. And if they want to, the IRS can come do a residency audit on you.
Hey, Creighton, thank you for the call. 603-283-6160 is the number if you would like to call and talk about whatever's on your mind. This is Free Talk Live. More coming up.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can't do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me.
Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, hey. Who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video or audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait a minute.
Whoa. Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me?
Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
Very
Keeping me
said.
on my toes.
Very well said. Yeah, we were indecisive about who was going to do that particular.
Again, the Spider-Man thing.
Yeah. It's definitely we were doing the Spider-Man thing. It is Free Talk Live. The telephone number here is 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the captain.
It's Nikki.
And Mark.
You can join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before Pork Fest. So now we're the pre-funk. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, your RV site, or your motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to all of those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there, forkfest.party.
Can I make a special announcement?
What do you mean by special?
Well, I'm going to do it anyways.
Do you mean like special?
So,
or do you mean like special?
Special!
Okay.
So I'm officially getting married at Forkfest now.
Woo!
Yep,
Nice.
it's official.
Does the other person know you're getting married?
Yep.
Okay.
He's the one that called Rogers.
I know. I'm aware.
I'm glad. And so this will be the Fork Fest before Pork Fest.
Yep.
Are you also officiating this one?
I have not been asked to officiate, but
you might be.
I only will officiate at weddings that I think the people are going to, I'm certain that they're going to stick together.
Yeah.
That in my own level of certainty.
You need to keep your reputation up. I get it.
And I think they will. So I am open to that.
Thanks,
I
Mark.
said I wanted to remain 3 for 3, but I would be willing to be 4 for 4.
Okay.
It's funny using the word officiating because it sounds like it's going to be like a wrestling match, right? Mark shows up with the whistle and the striped shirt on, the flags and everything.
Yeah.
Much as I'd like to see to see Nikki doing some wrestling, I think Matt's going to win.
Yeah, I would get my ass kicked.
I think Matt can take you.
Yeah.
So in the previous segment, we were talking about finding freedom and the many ways to do that and the different things that people are doing to try and do that.
And by the way, you can go to locatingliberty.com.
Very nice.
Thank you.
And I brought up the fact that, in my opinion, there's evidence that there is a market for freedom. And I'm using the examples of people moving to different places to try and become more free for different reasons.
Yep.
Individuals have different reasons for doing everything. And so there are people on the online community who have sought more freedom in places like Texas. They've sought more freedom in places like Florida. They seek more freedom in places like New Hampshire. They seek more freedom in places like Honduras, where you're doing your community. What's the website for it?
You can go to projectmayflower.com.
Projectmayflower.com. So I'm using these, sort of.
Maybe it's projectmayflower.io. Anyway, it was Google Project Mayflower.
Very well. I'm using these examples as evidence that there is a market for freedom. Now, I'm a supporter of all of these different things, right? If there's somebody somewhere else, not even in the United States of America, like what you're doing something you were doing something in the Marianas Islands, and now you're doing something on Honduras. I support all of that work because you're right. Freedom means different things to different people, and so you should, as an individual, seek out whatever that means to you. Now, does that mean that something like the New Hampshire freedom migration is right for you? I don't know. You got to make up your own mind. Does that mean moving to Honduras is right for you? I don't know. You got to make up your own mind. So I think what the caller was kind of asking you with regards to the Marianas Islands was you were really loud, if you will, and consistent about this is where we need to go. This is the thing that you need to do.
I said that this is the freest place in the United States.
Yes. So why did you change your mind about that now compared to doing the thing you're doing now in Honduras? So what changed to make you decide that this other location was better for you and like people that you care about?
So COVID hit, and the Marianas reacted basically like every other South Pacific island did, which is lockdown. I got out on the second or third to last flight off the island for weeks.
Yikes.
And there's just, I just didn't want to be on Alcatraz, whether it was a free Alcatraz or not. And, their sort of culture is the way they are is, and one of the things that makes it really nice is that they're not the kind to question the government about wearing masks and vaccines and these sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And by the way, they had an outbreak of COVID when they had a vaccinated population in the neighborhood of 98%. They had you can see how difficult it would be to A, avoid the vaccine, and B, speak out against it.
Yeah.
And to me, it just didn't seem like the right place at the time. So when I left the island, it was a long, arduous flight, and I was trying to imagine to myself, well, what if I have to go see Mom,
mm-hmm.
which is effectively what I was doing,
right?
And then I want to return to the Marianas. I couldn't use the Marianas as a base of operations. What I'm doing is I go around the world and I report on it.
Right.
So you don't need to pick the place that I pick. Because the Marianas is a good place for a lot of Americans. If freedom's what they want. but it's not right for everybody. And I often will talk about what I think New Hampshire's right for this very reason.
Right.
Because most of my friends have moved to New Hampshire, and they're even worse than Texans about their state. Look, New Hampshire's the only place you can go. What are you talking about? Right? Like they can get they're just shy of hyperventilating, passing out when you say that you might go someplace else for freedom. And I think that there's a lot of places that one can go. So that's why I just decided that the Marianas wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And now, by the way, legally, I'm still on the Marianas because I left within 14 days of a declared state of emergency. So the IRS considers me to be a Marianas resident, even though I haven't stepped foot on the island for more than 2 years.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting that a place that, and I respect your judgment when you say that it's the freest place in the possession of the United States or part of the United States. But it's interesting to me that they locked down.
I know.
And
very dichotomous.
Very, very contrary to it being the freest place.
Yeah,
it's disappointing at best.
It's like a dog that you let out of the house to do what you want when you want, but boy, oh boy, that dog better be there when he's supposed to and get back in the house when I call. So it's kind of like how it was.
All that to say, my point is that there should be competing markets for freedom.
Yeah.
Like I want to see places like Honduras, the Marianas, Texas, New Hampshire, whatever. People who are doing freedom, I want to see them pop up, spring up all over the world. I want to see them begin to compete with each other to provide or to attract the freedom-oriented people.
I don't think it's going to be in the United States, and it's because the United States doesn't have any motivation to create special economic zones. It's because the IRS, which is the most feared organization by Americans, is able to do whatever it wants, up to and including hiring a bunch of Keystone cops, thousands and thousands of Keystone cops, and training them to shoot Americans.
603-283-6160. Where can you go to be the most free?
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Italians have been voting for their next Prime Minister, and exit polls suggest Giorgia Meloni, head of the far-right Brothers of Italy party, could be the country's first ever female leader. Her right-wing coalition is projected to take the majority of seats in Italy's parliament. Meloni has sought to distance the Brothers of Italy from its post-fascist origins, but her victory would mean the country has elected its most right-wing government since World War II. Dr. Alberto Testa is an expert on the far right and explains what Meloni and her party stand for.
Fratelli d'Italia, or Brothers Italy Party, is a post-fascist party. But just really to clarify the far-right kind of meanings. When we speak about the far-right, we see the extreme, which we see small groups following a white supremacist and Nazi ideology. Then we see radical right groups which play at the democratic system, so try to win elections. And Brothers of Italy is a part of this group. It has its roots on a party called the Italian Social Movement, which formed by remaining Mussolini supporters after the Second World War. So we can classify as a post-fascist party.
The White House's national security advisor has warned of catastrophic consequences if Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin last week threatened to use any means to defend its territory as he announced partial mobilization in Russia. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told ABC's This Week that the US is taking this threat seriously. But Jake Sullivan also said the US is keeping its communications with Russia private to avoid engaging in a tit-for-tat rhetorical battle. Ukraine's president said he doesn't think Vladimir Putin is bluffing. Speaking to CBS, Volodymyr Zelensky said maybe yesterday it was a bluff, now it could be a reality. North Korea has launched a ballistic missile ahead of US Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to the Indo-Pacific, according to South Korean military officials. The launch also comes as the US and South Korea start 4 days of joint military exercises, which Pyongyang has in the past viewed as evidence of hostile intent. Washington and Seoul say they are defensive drills, but previous exercises have been both closely watched and criticised by China and Russia, who claim they increase regional tensions. The Biden administration is forging ahead with its efforts to try and deepen its regional alliances in a bid to counter the rise of China, build consensus on Russia over its war in Ukraine, as well as address technology security and supply chain challenges. In Tokyo, Kamala Harris will attend the funeral of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and hold a bilateral meeting with current Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. And later in the week, she'll head to Seoul for a bilateral with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, where they'll discuss concerns around North Korea. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
And we're alive.
We are alive.
And we're talking.
And we're free.
The live thing really could be a variety. Most people are listening. Many people are listening to us on podcast.
Yes.
And most people are not listening to us live. So a lot of radio stations carry us delayed. If you're listening from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.,
yes, then
you're listening to us live. Probably. And they could be taking a different hour or something like that.
Yeah.
But we're in the final hour, so it's almost a certainty. If you're listening between 7 p.m. Eastern and 10 p.m. Eastern, that you're listening to us live. But if you're not, I'd like to encourage you. We're on here 7 days a week.
We are.
Taking your calls. Call in, talk about whatever's important to you. What is eating away at you? What is that thing you have to say?
So we've been talking a lot about freedom and that type of thing, and I know, Mark, you had some more things that you want to say, but first I want to go to Alu calling from New Hampshire. Alu, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hi, guys. It's nice to hear Mark again, and it's great to hear Captain and Nikki. I miss you all, especially Mark. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah,
and also congratulations to Bonnie and Ian and to Nikki and Matt.
Thanks.
Super happy for you guys. I love all you guys.
Power couples.
Yeah.
Hey, I heard it was your anniversary today.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess we get congratulations too.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I married the cutest chipmunk in the world. Yep.
Perfect.
So what's on your mind, Alu?
Yeah. All right. Next order of business. I'm pretty much out of a job indefinitely due to weird medical stuff, even though I'm totally fine. I pretty much fainted like 4 weeks ago, and I'm fine, but it's hard getting back to work. So I'm just working odd jobs and focusing on the books. So if anybody has interesting jobs that I could do in New Hampshire, that's appreciated. And obviously the books, if you just go to Amazon and look up Alu Excellent, you can find my books. And obviously purchasing and reviews are super appreciated. I'm publishing Station and Stuff in like a week or two, hopefully, and that's going to be awesome.
Nice.
The thing I really wanted to call about today was about Narcan. You guys were talking about it last night. I didn't get a chance to call in time last night. So I'll give you the basics of Narcan. The background, I was a medic for the last 7 years, EMS for 12 years. Naloxone, brand name Narcan, is opioid antagonist. So I think you guys were talking about agonists and antagonists. It goes into the opioid receptors in the brain and it blocks it so that it can't be filled and stimulated by any opioids, from heroin to fentanyl and everything else.
Okay, so it's a blocker, basically?
Yeah, exactly. It just blocks it. Now, people say it's super safe and has no side effects, which is totally true, 100%, but also not true, because even though it's 100% safe and now cops have it and it's deregulated, which I agree with politically, obviously, but cops have it and lay people have it, they should be aware that there are theoretical side effects, because if you give it and it wears off in 5 minutes, whereas the heroin doesn't wear off for 5 hours.
They can still
then you
OD.
might give it and turn around, and then they overdose. Exactly.
Right. So if you
the
took
other
a
side of
thimble
fentanyl-
full of fentanyl, the Narcan's not going to save you.
No, a lot of times people will need multiple doses of it, and an important thing to recognize is you can send someone into instant withdrawals because they're not getting that high anymore. So
withdrawal is horrifically unpleasant, and/or they might kill you.
They wake up swinging.
Really and they vomit very often, especially with Narcan for some reason. But the big thing is I've seen this is Narcan, depending how you give it IV and bioavailability and the other route and all the other stuff, it could have a half-life of 5, 10, 20 minutes. So if they have a lot of opioids in their system or just something longer half-life, you give it, you turn around, you think they're fine, and the ER nurse turns around because they're fine, and then it wears off, and then the opioid takes back over the receptors, and then they die. So in a weird way, Narcan can't kill you, but it can kill you because you're going to, get a false sense of security. So
exactly.
There's interesting things about it. But I think you guys were talking about a case, I think I heard about a while ago, where medics came and gave ketamine and killed a guy, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's a very interesting case, very sad. Ketamine can kill, obviously, more than Narcan. Ketamine, in general, I don't carry it much. Only one of my trucks carries it, so when I'm working on Northampton, I'll carry it. But in general, they say it's a very safe sedative. It's used for pain medication, for sedation, for a lot of other uses. It's way safer because it's different than the benzos, like Versed, which is maybe a bit less safe because ketamine doesn't really have the respiratory depression that the others have, like not the opioids, not even like the benzos. But I guess if you give way too much, you can kill him, or maybe there was some kind of interaction with some other drug he had. But yeah, overall, the big thing I would say about police and medics and everyone is everyone should learn verbal de-escalation and like non-violent de-escalation as far as like grappling, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. If everyone, especially police, trained in more grappling stuff from BJJ to wrestling, everyone would be so much safer. Cops would be more confident and less likely to reach for the gun first. And everyone will be so much safer. So
it's funny to me because people who do like call center work, right? They just take phone calls all day long. They get more training in de-escalation than police do.
Oh, I'm sure. And I'm thinking of like my role as a nurse, and we can use physical and like medical restraints, but sometimes you have to restrain someone right then and there, or else they're gonna try to kill you or whatever. So that's kind of more what Alu's talking about with the police were trained in more that way. Because as a nurse, I don't have a gun, and even if I did, I wasn't gonna shoot somebody. It's just ridiculous.
There's a few ways to do it. There's really a few ways to do it. I don't carry it work if I can't, but regardless, I'm so not violent when I'm at work. I'm thinking if the patient is cursing me out and trying to kill me, I still don't think I'm going to kill him. I think he's sick.
Absolutely.
Or mental status. He has a brain injury or dementia. I've had dementia patients who are, pretty aggressive and could hurt me, but I never think about hurting them. I'll hold their arm down. I've helped people. I've touched patients, but holding their arm on the wrist as loose as I can, but also making sure they don't hit me, putting them down, getting extra hands really calmly, slowly getting back up, and I put them down, and they usually calm down once we get them on the stretcher. I've never hurt any patient ever. Some medics do, some cops do, they're more aggressive, but I've had patients, kick at me, punch me, probably hurt me, but some medics do, some EMTs do, but I've never in my style to even think about, never crossed my mind to hurt the patient, because like they're sick, and my mind, whenever they're ultra mental status or aggressive, I think maybe they're sick, post-ictal, stroke, seizure, hypoglycemic, or head trauma. I've seen head traumas where I had a guy who had actually some of his brain had come out of his skull. He had massive head trauma. He felt the story's high, and he had a seizure, and he was post-ictal, and his post-ictal version was aggressive, and he was beating the crap out of us. But we didn't hurt him. Like I wasn't even thinking of hurting him. He was a big, strong construction guy, and he was thrashing his arms around. Didn't know what he was doing. His skull was cracked open, but he was aggressive, and he was going to be like kind of swinging at us, laying on the stretcher, and we held him down very lightly and professionally, and we got him to the hospital, extremely quickly. And
I can only imagine the pain that guy was going through in that circumstance.
Well,
the shock.
The empathy, I think typically healthcare professionals have a lot more empathy than law enforcement.
As a fireman, I've seen cops do brave things, and I've also seen them do dumb things. And it's hard.
Well, the thing about the article Alu is referring to, and I don't remember, so I could be wrong, but I think that they were saying that the police were the ones who administered the ketamine, not the medics. I could be.
Why is a cop administering ketamine?
Well, so sometimes the police are cross-trained as medical first response.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Right.
So there are a few cops, essentially SWAT in New York City, NYPD, they call it ESU, like emergency whatever, super tactical unit, and they were all paramedics, and they were working in the scope of cops and paramedics, so they, technically could have ketamine, but no other cops besides super duper ultra SWAT medic cops should ever be touching any syringe with anything.
So then I'm probably misremembering, because I just remember feeling when we were talking about that article that I don't want cops administering anything. And I know we're literally like steps away from cops giving you a blood test on the side of the road to tell, whether or not they're going to give you a DUI. I realize that is like sort of the next logical step for law enforcement to implement. And I don't want that in any way, shape, or form.
I would think that I can understand why a police officer that wants to save a life can see a vial of, or a syringe of ketamine and say to himself, well, I've seen it on TV, and this guy's going to die if I don't do it right now. And then, do the stab and do the injection and then, misdose somebody and kill them. Now, whether they were going to, they likely weren't in good shape to start with, but, I can see why somebody would make a rash decision in life or death.
Yeah, certainly. Alu, thank you for the call. We appreciate you, and good luck on your books. I've read some of his stuff. He's a pretty good author, man. He writes good stuff. 603-283-6160.
I hope he can come and do some Free Talk Live.
Yeah, or he can keep calling in, of course.
Indeed.
He's a great activist as well. More Free Talk Live is coming up. It's the Sunday night edition. More of your calls are on the way.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, that's really the reason why I amp, is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
Back we are.
That was my William Shatner version of the branding on the way back in from the break. The dramatic pause. I used to use William Shatner in training classes for call center employees on pitch, pace, pause, and pronunciation, because William Shatner was very good at dramatic pause. He was one of the best at keeping your attention through the use of silence in between the words which he spoke. So
poetry.
Yeah. Like it's like, oh, how to speak differently, right?
He always sounds like he's doing slam poetry.
I also like. I know people can't see because this is a radio show, but William Shatner does this thing usually in Star Trek where he just sort of he wiggles his shoulder as he's talking. He just
I've never noticed
like
that.
as if his arm is lame and it's been dislocated, and he just sort of and his arm just sort of jerks around a little bit, like as if he's just got his arm completely relaxed, and it's weird the way he delivers. Our other sometimes co-host, Nobody does what I call the gopher dance, the gopher from Caddyshack.
He does do that. You're right. Now that you're doing it, I can feel Nobody being channeled.
Yeah, it's like that song from Caddyshack, the I'm all right. It's like Nobody's theme music as he goes through life. So anyway, it is Free Talk Live. We'll get to your calls momentarily. Before we go any further, I have to say thank you to Nelson Aquino. Nelson is an amplifier of ours, and you can learn about that over at amps.freetalklive.com. Nelson is a platinum level amplifier, which means he gives, well, what is it, $25 for platinum, right? It's 5 and 10.
Yeah, that sounds right.
$25, yeah.
Thank you, Nelson.
Every month to help us advertise, market, promote, and support.
I've met him.
This particular program. So if you enjoy Free Talk Live, if you enjoy the hosts, the co-hosts, the topics, the callers, the content, the fact that we try to come at things from the perspective of freedom, peace, and prosperity, please consider becoming an amplifier over at amps.freetalklive.com. Thank you again, Nelson Aquino. You are appreciated. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, we were on this topic, and I just wanted to just sort of wrap it in. One of the if you look at revolutionary movements throughout history, I think libertarians have strengths and challenges in this arena. Mm-hmm. One of our challenges is that we don't work well together, and what you need is organization. The Soviets weren't the biggest group. They were the best organized, and they supported their own. And libertarians don't do that because we aren't about loyalty. We're about truth. And everybody's wrong on something. So you can't be both loyal and niggle about the truth at the same time.
Yeah, and libertarians like to argue about who's the most correct about any given topic or
we're not called debatatarians for no reason at all. And debatatarian doesn't bring up the idea of loyalty.
I would just like to say, though, that I have seen, particularly with the events of the Crypto 6, right, the raid and all that kind of thing, I saw an outpouring of support from people that I had never met, but y'all have met, who've been longtime listeners, people who had nothing to do with the show for years, coming back, hey, I heard what happened, offering their financial support, their material support, their, hey, can I just reblog or talk about a thing, that kind of a thing. So when the chips are down, the libertarians do very well cooperating together when the pressure is on. I think that is a quality of libertarians that is often overlooked. So I just want to make sure that, we're not saying libertarians can't work well together. We're just saying that they kind of don't on a day-to-day basis. When the chips are down, however, I think that level of cooperation shoots through the roof.
Yeah, and you can go to find our Ballad of the Crypto 6 at our Indiegogo campaign, and there's a variety of ways you can help support. So we would appreciate the support in that area. But the other thing I want to say is that as much as libertarians are clumped with conservatives, they're not. They're progressives.
Right.
But the problem is that progressives, like what you think of as a progressive is a socialist, right? Like they're progressing towards socialism.
Yeah, nowadays, yeah.
Progressing towards liberty. And so what we are is a reactionary progressive. We tend to react when a thing happens, like conservatives do. But we are progressive in the sense like the socialists are, in the sense that we want to progress to a new and better world. And this is the difficulty that we are dealing with. We are not going to see a libertarian revolution. You're not going to see libertarianism brought around by street art. You're not going to see libertarianism brought around by, a women's protest like we did with the labor movement in the United States, or the Irish, the Troubles.
Right.
These sorts of things. Just not going to happen.
Right.
There's two ways that libertarianism can be sort of instilled, and they're almost antithetical to liberty as a notion. So liberty as a notion is like trying to separate yourself from the state and its controls.
Mm-hmm.
So in one instance, we have basically New Hampshire. New Hampshire's going about sort of doing what it takes to do one of these paths, and that is legislative. Get involved in an existing government and morph that government into something that is more about freedom.
Right.
Get a tractor, slap some wings on it, and make that baby fly.
Right.
And the other option, and this is why I say it's hard to retrofit the state, because the state's a tractor.
Right.
And what we're trying to do is strap wings on it.
Right.
The other option is to build your own country. Now, libertarians have tried this multiple times. You can look up the Republic of Minerva. There's a couple of multiple stories of cruise ships.
Sure. Seasteading and all that. Yeah.
And honestly, the World, if you look at the cruise ship called the World, it is a libertarian city, municipality.
Yeah.
Seasteading is another example, as you mentioned. There's a variety of them out there. And I think that, to me, this is the one that's going to work because of a problem I outlined earlier in the show, which is that I think the legislative route that New Hampshire takes requires a multi-generational, at the very least two, to get from here to liberty. I don't think it can be done in one person's lifetime. And the only people who care about liberty are people who've had it robbed from them. And often, the only people who care about liberty are the ones that had it robbed from them. That the children of libertarians, even if they are libertarians, just kind of go off and do their thing because they want something more out of life, and it's not fighting the state. So you have to have somebody who is hurt and harmed by the state to want to fight the state, and that's why I tend to think that that route isn't going to work, even though I believe it to be one of the viable routes.
I agree with everything you said, and I'm on board with the multi-generational aspect of it, with the caveat of using the tools that we have available right now. Right, what you just said is absolutely true. It's either going to come about from, doing something like New Hampshire's doing, which is get inside of the thing and try and morph it into something a little closer to what everybody desires. There is another option, of course, the one that I don't want, which is violent revolution. Right,
I don't think it'll work.
Conflict. I don't think it'll work either. But that is the third option. But and I keep talking about this Buckminster Fuller quote, and it's basically, don't try and fight the thing that exists to change. Build something new that outdoes it. And so I think you and I agree on that philosophy. And the reason that I say that you're accurate with the tools that are available today is that we're, for the first time in mankind's history, seeing anarchic infrastructure. right? And that is cryptocurrency. That is the network effect of the internet, right? The internet, despite the fact that governments claim that it's regulated and they tax you to get on it and get off of it and all that kind of a thing, it is anarchic at its core because it's just a network. It just directs traffic. That's all it does. And cryptocurrency, of course, for the first time is the first killer app is an anarchic currency. That is, no one's in charge of it. It's its own thing. It has value because, well, we say it has value, and as long as it's used, it will continue to have value. And so I think that somebody's going to come along very soon because usually when technology progresses and we have these huge jumps in technology, another jump happens even faster. And I think we're going to see another jump in technology that's going to provide more tools for freedom.
I would agree with you. And I think that the whole advent of cryptocurrency really allowed people to pick up and move and leave where they are. Yeah, I don't think you need to be rich in order to travel and enjoy freedom, because honestly, your stuff controls you. And the house I used to own, having the white picket fence was always the American dream, but at some point or another, it controls you. And renting, well, it's nice that somebody else has to take out of the hot water heater.
We're out of time. Thanks for everybody listening. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you to all our listeners. Peace.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community